and it deserves a huge rollout of spectators here at the Wellington waterfront because it's going to be one great race.
33.93 and 34.18. It's pretty close up front. Teams about letting the front runners go and not getting into trouble and hanging back for a little while. But as I said to Alan Grice this morning, if everybody's going to hang back, you're going to have a clear road in front of you. And he said, yes, well, if the bull was brains, we'd all be Einstein as well.
There's Alan Grice and Cameron. They've had not the easiest path here to lining up today. They obviously had problems early in the week with Graham Cameron tipping the car over during training. And of course yesterday they were used as T-bone practice by yet another Australian driver, so Grice has felt the pinch, so to speak. But he's a charger, and if the car is operating well, I think that you'll find that Grice will come through the field. He'll certainly make a run at it in the opening laps of the race.
Well, keep an eye on start time. The race scheduled to start at 1 o'clock. They're looking a little ways off that at the moment because they've got to have their little warm-up around the circuit and then the rolling start around behind the pace car, which will pull off at the end of the pit road, and then they'll be away. The race, as you may have already heard, is 4 hours or 500 kilometres, whichever comes first. And working out lap times on a reasonable sort of race average, we estimate that the 4 hours will come up before 500 kilometres is completed.
There's George Fury sitting behind the wheel of the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Unflappable George, a farmer from Talmalmo in New South Wales. Joe Cool, as they like to call him, former Australian rally champion. 3 minutes away from start time.
Well, the adrenaline's certainly starting to flow now. I wouldn't mind a penny for the thoughts of these drivers on today's grid here at Wellington for the Nissan Mobil 500. John Harvey, former Australian speed car champion. His career goes back a long way, Mike. One of his greatest interests, motorcycling, and certainly a man with a tremendously long list of credentials.
He certainly is a very talented driver, John Harvey. Peter Brock, the man who teamed with Alan Moffat to take the second edition of the Nissan Mobil 500 here on the streets of Wellington only last year. And of course, the XJS Jags today have Major Tom, car number 51, Tom Walkinshaw, and Wyn Percy steering the 51 machine. It's going to be a busy day for Tom Walkinshaw, I believe. Straight after the race, Tom is bound on a plane for Europe tonight.
Well, we looked at the look on his face when he got out of the car yesterday, having had a bad run in the flying lap, and he was not a very happy man. He has had a string of bad luck at this Nissan Mobil race. Peter Brock looking out the window, as is Graham Crosby, and some of the local support here. Graham Crosby, of course, a very popular man, and very strangely, having been the World Formula One motorcycle champion in 80 and 81, and was virtually an unknown name in New Zealand, but since he started in Group A cars and done very well in Australia, he's suddenly become an incredibly popular figure in New Zealand.
He certainly has, and looking at the sign, Cros eats Oz and Poms. We'll see how good the digestive tract is around about 4 hours' time.
Certainly Graham Crosby has had similar problems to Alan Grice in terms of having dings immediately before the race, and Alan Grice has worked very hard. His mechanics have been working most of the night to get that car repaired and to get it set up. He had a discretionary practice this morning, and he feels happy and says that the car is as good as it can be in the time allowed.
Interesting to see here that quite a few of the cars have got the flexi hose connectors coming into the cockpit. They're obviously expecting some pretty hot temperatures out there today.
I think that's fairly evident with Tom Walkinshaw. He usually drives with a cool suit on anyway, so whether or not he's brought it across thinking the weather might be on the cool side, it hasn't turned out that way, and Tom's going to get a little bit of ventilation via the scoop on the side.
In fact, we might get a chance to have a look a little later on at the new cool suits, which have water pumped around them. You wear a portion of it around the torso and a skull cap on the head, and it has cooled water pumped around it to keep the driver cold. Amazing innovation. It's worth about $8,000 New Zealand. Not the kind of thing that your social or backyard driver is going to go out and buy, but some of the professional teams, of course, have them if it gives them some advantage. Off on their mobile start lap now. I think the excitement is going to come on the mobile start. The big sprint up to the corner where the track has been extended. This hairpin is now about 600 or 700 metres further on than it was last year, and it was a tight enough corner on the circuit last year. I know know several of the drivers are a little worried about that sprint up to the first corner and how tight it might be. The odd ding and all the cars coming behind them at full pace. Not the kind of thing you want to happen on the start. And certainly not for the third running of the Nissan Mobil 500, which really has become a Wellington event, not just a motor race. Motor race, of course, the focal point of this weekend event. Looking at Steve Soper trying to warm up the tyres in the Sierra there, weaving around. The idea is to get some heat into the front tyres so that it will turn in for you.
So let's watch for the start when the pace car pulls off on the pit entry line. George Fury holding the inside of the circuit, but not necessarily the best line for the approach to Post Office Savings Bank corner. And it'll be turbo against non-turbo. The turbo 2-litre Nissan car of George Fury against the big grunter, the 5-litre Commodore V8 of Peter Brock.
Certainly the Commodores have the numbers in here, running through those cars against 7 Commodores. The next best represented is the Nissan Skylines with 3, along with 3 Mustangs and 3 Jaguars. There are 5 BMW 635 CSIs, along with 2 BMW 325i's. A good representation of the various manufacturers. As we said earlier, a sponsor's dream to have a Nissan on pole and alongside him a Mobil car. The sponsors couldn't be happier.
Well, nobody could be happier, I suspect, than George Fury to be sitting on pole, but George is going to have to survive perhaps a first corner challenge from Peter Brock in the 05 Mobil Commodore. They'll be starting to put a little heat into the tyres. You can see George Fury, that's critical for the Nissan Skyline. He wants to get away to a very clean start. The Armin-Hana Jaguar carrying a little more weight, obviously, but the first corner is still likely to be an episode of helter-skelter, sitting in behind the Nissan pace car as they come through onto the dock area. Beautiful setting for a street race here in Wellington, New Zealand.
They call it the Monaco of the South Pacific, and it's quite an apt description. It is a beautiful circuit, visually very exciting. There's enough speed in it now with 150 or 55 miles an hour straights to make it very dangerous as well. As we've already seen in the early practice, the attrition rate is likely to be quite high. Several places on the circuit are narrow enough so that if one car gets sideways, it will in fact effectively block the track.
Here they come now, right behind, side by side in for the start for the 1982 Nissan Mobil 500. They are racing, and it's Georgie Fury of Tal Malmo, New South Wales, gets the shot. Here comes Brock down on the inside of Armin-Hana. Hana trying to close the gate on him, but Brock takes over second. Hana is now third. Wide is Perkins. Inside goes Cross. Round the outside goes Gunnar Anderson and the Volvo, and they have all managed to just about get through the first corner without any troubles at all. But it's George Fury who'll lead them. Brock still in second. Hana followed by Crosby, Perkins, Gunnar Anderson. Then, of course, Jim Richards, and sitting in behind him, Stephen Soper.
Well, a good clean start. They've all got away. Excellent to see that there was no problem on that first corner. And now they settle down to race pace. Peter Brock with Armin-Hana right on his tail.
There's Harvey down on the inside of Soper. He picks up one spot early in the race. Started out of 8 up to 7th. Jim Richards, a great start from Jim.
Good start from Graham Crosby too.
Excellent start. He's stayed on the pace there. Here's Harvey coming down on the inside of Jimmy Richards. Can't call that. Back behind them, Charlie O'Brien and the State Coal BMW. A very clean start to the race.
It's going to be interesting to see here if George Fury can pull a gap. He certainly appeared in qualifying to have enough power and enough speed there to be able to pull away something like a third of a second per lap. And that's precisely what he would want to do, is to put a little bit of a run on the rest of the field. He knows Peter Brock is going to be right behind him, Armin-Hana behind him, then Crosby, and then Price.
Well, that's a substantial lead already in any man's language. When you talk about street racing, that's a good break. Georgie Fury across the strike. He leads it from Brock. Armin-Hana, a gap then back to Crosby, followed by Perkins. Then quite a gap opening to Gunnar Anderson, and Harvey now making it up on the outside. So Harvey at this stage being somewhat of the big mover. And here he comes down on the inside of Gunnar Anderson. Anderson goes to turn. Harvey takes the slot away. Richards tries to follow through, and Soper sitting in there tailgating as well.
And Richards has taken that place. So it's Fury, Brock, Hana, Crosby, Price, Harvey, Richards, Soper.
Just look at that little Nissan Skyline with the turbo boost turned up. Just rocket along. Jervois Key, and here he comes. George Fury, 30. Peter Jackson zips through there beneath the BMW bridge and heading up now towards Sony Turn.
These first few laps absolutely vital for George Fury to sort out whether or not the car and he are capable of pulling away that little gap that they want. They want to build up a little bit of a buffer early on.
There's the gap. Fury doing it comfortably. Comes back on through Strathmore Sports Turn. Heading down now towards Foster's Bridge. Everything running nicely for the Peter Jackson Nissan team. Brock has Armin Hannah very close to him though. They come through the chicane. There's Hannah. Graham Crosby, great job that from Cros.
Right, amazing how undramatically this Nissan Skyline handles with George Fury out in front. It really doesn't look as though it's going as fast as it is. You watch a Commodore and a Jag go round, you look at them and say that they are going very, very quickly. If you look at George Fury, it looks so smooth and so easy. It's amazing just how quick the pace is.
I believe the interest in the race here is between Hannah and Peter Brock. Brock has opened the gate. Silly move that, Peter. That lets Hannah through on the inside. Caught one out and one back. That drops him to third. Now we'll see whether or not all the might and all the horsepower of the XJS V12 Jaguar can pull back that little Nissan Turbo Skyline.
Some good stuff coming there from Alan Grice in the Simpson Commodore. He's on the back of Tom Walkinshaw at the moment. Grice is up to around about 10th or 11th position.
There is Walkinshaw. Picked up a couple of places already on the charge and trying to get up with the teammate Armin Hannah in second place.
Tom still has a fairly difficult job from there. Grice reasonably close to him. There's Brock running in third spot on the road. Perkins has come up to sit on the tail of Graham Crosby at this stage. And all the time, George Fury, little sideways coming out of that turn, really getting the tail out of the Nissan and lighting up the tyres. Very uncharacteristic for George Fury.
I wonder how long George Fury can hold on to that kind of pace on his tyres.
Well, if the tyres hang out, I'd say probably about 4 hours. He's made the V8s feel the pitch, so to speak, in Australia this year. And keep in mind, this is the car that Nissan hope to unveil in the World Touring Car Championship, and what a little rocket ship it's going to be. All the development work done by Howard Marsden, Fred Gibson, and the driving chores, of course, handled by George Fury. And here he is really steaming along, coming down to the hairpin again. He is your race leader in the Nissan Mobil 500. Nissan must be smiling. Their product continues to lead the race.
Armin Hannah in second place still. Brock in third.
Here's Major Tom in 51, and right behind him, Spicy Gracie in the Commodore after a shunt yesterday, sitting right behind the second of the XJS Jags.
11.6 seconds now, the difference between George Fury and Tom Walkinshaw.
I'll be intrigued to see just what Armin Hannah can do in second place there. Starting to pull away a little from Peter Brock since he got past him. Can he pick up George Fury? Fury obviously wants to put a gap on the field. Armin Hannah wants to keep him in sight. Staying in touch seems to be within his grasp as he pulls away from Brock. Crosby behind him, then Grice, and go back to Harvey.
Here's the second group. Harvey were just picked up. Just look at them jumping over the bumps. I tell you what, this is going to play havoc with suspensions, particularly those guys tapping the brakes as they hit the bumps, flat spotting the tyres. There's Perkins going through. Car number 11 well positioned at this stage of the race. And of course, Larry Perkins has had a trouble-free run to today's 500k event.
Crosby just keeping Peter Brock right in touch there, hanging on to the tail and hoping that Brock will take him through a little quicker. But there's Fury starting to pull away. It's an even bigger gap now. There's Hannah with the lights on. Already the Isuzu Gemini being lapped.
I tell you, that's only one of many times it'll be lapped. Now look at Cros going down the outside here, trying to pick up a spot, and he will swing it back to the outside. And he's gone through to drop Peter Brock one spot down the pack. Now Graham Crosby moves up into third, Brock in behind them, and then Larry Perkins.
I wonder, in fact, what Peter Brock's tactics are. I find it hard to believe that the car is that slow and that he's not really on full pace. I don't think he's really on 10 tenths at all.
Well, he went for it last year from lap 1. I don't know whether or not he's just eased off the pace a little. It might be a cracker out there, but it's a little unlike Brock. He's a great tactician. Cross, though, no doubt about him. He's going for the win. He's done a great job to come up from behind. Brock sits in behind him. Larry Perkins and trouble. Per Gunner Anderson. At car number 15, Graham Bowkett. They have touched an incident up there, and we also have Tony Longhurst. And I tell you what, Tony has been in just about every episode of the war this weekend. So he might be an aggressive driver, but he's been in just about everything.
Well, that's a place we've had a few people on before, but the Bajan Bowkett Nissan Skyline looking decidedly second-hand. They brought 2 of them here. They ran them both in practice and decided that this, the newer of the 2, was the quicker car.
That indeed is a tragedy for Bowkett's team, and obviously Per Gunner Anderson, because that Volvo was running very, very solidly and setting a solid pace too in qualifying. Georgie Fury now coming up into traffic. He's being stalked by Armin Hana in car number 52.
And this might be interesting too, because Fury's Skyline is considerably narrower than Hana's Jaguar. Getting through the traffic might be an easier exercise, the way that little Skyline leaps out of corners. Armin Hana in the Jag, of course, has the horsepower, but it takes a lot of stopping, and he may have to anticipate just a little getting through the traffic.
Hana's done a great job so far on the 52 Strathmore Group XJS. There he is, headlights ablaze, making sure the Fury doesn't get too far ahead of him, and little George has got the wick turned up and the turbo teapot, and here's one Nissan that's not missing.
So the position after 5 laps, going from the pole position, Fury and Seaton.
After 5 laps, the official positions, Fury and Seaton leading from Holm and Hana, 1.71. Crosby and Wilkinson back a little ways. Perkins and Parsons, that gap of 1 second, 0.71, I think is not quite as close as it is on the track. Perkins and Parsons, Harvey and Lowe, and Crow and Richards. Let's go down and have a word with Tony Longhurst and see the reason for their entry to the pits at this early unscheduled stage.
Side of the BMW looks pretty second-hand, and Tony Longhurst, apparently there was quite some drama with a number of cars.
Yeah, Neil, we were running in about a 4 or 5 car formation. I think a Volvo, Nissan, Charlie O'Brien and myself, and we're going through the right-hand sweeper before we got to the bridge. The Volvo's wheel fell off. It careened straight into the Armco, bounced out, corrected the Nissan, so there was a couple of cars spinning. And I just sort of scraped, actually I got through very well, clipped the front of the car. It appears that it's bent something in the suspension. We had 2 punches, and hopefully it won't take them much longer.
It looks like they're replacing a steering joint at the moment, Tony. You've certainly had your fair share of drama throughout the week with bent cars.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. On Saturday, unfortunately, I was tied up with an incident where someone clipped me in the door and smashed their car into the Armco, and then Dick was right behind and he careened into that. And actually the situation we're just in then was very, very similar. It was actually the same corner. It's just the Volvo, you just see the wheel come off and went straight in the Armco. Maybe had 10 seconds to see what was going on, but by then, you know, there was just cars going in all directions.
All right, Tony, they're fitting the front left back on the car. We'll let you go. It looks as though Tony Longhurst will be back in the race.
Thanks, Neil. Hard luck for Tony Longhurst. It was a good entry in the 1600 and 2.5 litre class. It looks like he's going to be off the pace for quite some time unless he can drive his way back through the field. Looking at the race order at the moment, still George Fury out in front. Perkins is in front of Crosby. 2 Holden Dealer Team cars running around together now. There's Hana in second place.
There's Georgie Fury going through. Tony Longhurst has rejoined the field. Armin Hana running in second spot. Then the gap opens up. We'll wait for third as they come across the bridge. Here he comes. Larry Perkins. There's the gap. First back to second in the Nissan Mobil 500. Here's our third place, Larry Perkins in the white Commodore. The fourth place, Graham Crosby. The fifth place, Peter Brock. And the sixth place, John Harvey. The seventh place, Jim Richards. That's the order. And Tom Walkinshaw nowhere to be found back behind him. So whether or not we've lost Walkinshaw or whether he's just picking off the pace, all back in the pits. Yes, coming through. Car number 51, Walkinshaw. They're then tailed by Jeff Soper.
Walkinshaw seems to have slowed off. We'll get a check on the pace in just a moment. and looking at his speed as he came past the start-finish straight, it looked as though he had slacked off just a little. Certainly Armin Hana on the pace.
Well, it is a long race and physically demanding for drivers, particularly those tooling these XJS Jaguars here today on the streets of Wellington.
Maybe it's an occasion where we can take a driver at his word and say he's going to hop off the pace early on and let the rabbits run.
I don't know, maybe he's got two strong running rabbits in George Fury and Armin Hana to catch at this stage. However, here comes our race leader in the slower cars, and once again,
Fury hoping to get past there, but not enough space, so opted to hop back behind into safety. Here's Fury, the race leader, looking back for Armin Hana behind him.
Yellow flag still out. This obviously signifying to the oncoming drivers that there is an obstacle up ahead, and regrettably it's the Swedish Volvo which lost the wheel, caused that accident that Tony Longhurst explained to you just a while ago, and certainly a very, very sad end to a extremely professional effort of Ken Bagent and Graham Balcott, who, like Dick Johnson, have fallen as victims of circumstances here.
Armin Hana starting to catch George Fury, picking up the pace. Armin Hana appears to get closer each lap. The gap officially is not changing, but the traffic will be helping George Fury if it's helping anyone. The question to be asked at the moment is, where is Alan Grice? Was running very strongly indeed. Seems to have dropped off just a little. We'll get a look back at that.
Larry Perkins going through, followed by Graham Crosby. John Harvey is the next one. Then the next car is the 05 Mobil Dealer Team Commodore. Jim Richards now coming into view.
David
Jim
Oxton
goes through.
David Oxton, tactically, I'm at a loss to know why Peter Brock is back behind the second Holden Dealer Team car, whether in fact it is tactics or if he has a problem.
Well, I'd have to think it's a problem, because it's not really tactics of Peter Brock to go slow. I mean, I've never seen it. He's always run Bathurst races, like crush them in the first hour and leave them something to try and pick up at the end of the hour. So there's got to be a problem in 05. It may not be a problem that'll put him out, but not one that he wants to wrestle with at this stage. He's probably saying, okay, maybe I'm not as quick as Crosby, maybe I'm not as quick as Larry, but I've still got a good place. We notice that the Volvo is making its way back to the pits. It's just been removed from the wall, smoking its way, so it is mobile. It's Per Gunnar Anderson and the Gemco Volvo coming in for a fresh wheel. And we don't seem to be able to find Alan Grice. Now, all you Grice fans out there, he's hiding up a back alley somewhere or tucked behind an Armco, Mike. I can't see him.
No, I haven't been able to pick him up at all, but this is the scrap that we're following, and it is a good scrap indeed between the Jag of Tom Walkinshaw and, of course, the Little Sierra Turbo Ford of Stephen Soper and Neville Crichton. Now, here's the scrap coming down. Tom Walkinshaw has been feeling the pinch just a little bit from Soper. Down the inside, that slower car gave way barely to Tom Walkinshaw. And, of course, the Sunday Star sponsored Turbo Sierra of Soper and Crichton. Very, very close indeed at this stage.
So the order after 9 laps is Fury and Seaton, Perkins and Parsons, Crosby and Walkinshaw, Harvey and Lowe, Crow and Richards, Walkinshaw, Percy, Crichton, Soper, O'Brien, McIntyre.
Major Tom, car number 51, comes beneath the BMW bridge, starts to stretch out with the long legs of the V12 XJS Jaguar, but he's not getting away from Stephen Soper. Soper is closing it up all the time behind him in car number 10. They've had a few problems in the lead up to today's race, but it's looking sharp for them at this stage. Here's Walkinshaw in amongst the traffic again. Doesn't leave that little fella too much room, and now Soper's got to do it around the outside the hard way. So Tom will gain 2 100ths or 3 100ths of a second as they come up yet again in this slower traffic.
Further back in the field is the other Ford Sierra, the Andrew Meedicky Michael Hall car. Now let's look at these flags. There appears to be a problem, maybe just the debris that was created by the Balcott car. Yes, in fact, it's just the Graham Balcott Bagent car still in the position where it stopped. The marshals obviously deciding whether they can pull it against the fence and leave it there. So it'll be some sort of an additional chicane just for the drivers to contend with for the next 3.5 hours.
I think in the space of getting through there under yellow flags that Tom Walkinshaw probably lost a good second in following a smaller car, unable to pass, of course, under yellow flags. That's the rules. So he had no choice but to hop back behind that smaller car and stay there until he was through the area where the yellow flags are being shown.
There's a lot to be said, you know, in terms of the ETC regulation, which hopefully will be brought in under World Touring Car Championship. And in a situation on a street course like this, where we have a part of the circuit, well, almost completely blocked, where the pace car would come out, pull all the drivers up behind it under the yellow flags, not risk any of the marshals trying to dodge race cars, and it's not really going to add too much time to the full distance of the race.
A little like the system in Speedway.
Well, not only that, but it's the same in Indianapolis or anywhere, and I really don't like to see marshals at risk. We have guys out there now trying to move cars off the racetrack, which is unfair to them, and I believe is totally unfair, perhaps on the drivers trying to keep their concentration level up.
The other advantage, Mike, in the pace car situation is it brings a new race into the situation, and no one likes processions, and nothing better 3 hours in to see a pace car come out and, hey, we've got a new race, cars all bunched up together. But here's our leader, Georgie Fury, in the little Nissan Skyline, seemingly in control of this race the way he wants to be. This is a familiar sight to Australians. They saw this happen in the touring car rounds, very sideways there through the gate. George is doing something a little bit harder than he's ever done before here. He's determined to hold on for his sponsors and for the sake of the race and keep that lead. Remember that if he can build up a lead.
This was George Fury getting past Bob Barry and Chris Heyer. And the number 53 Fiat Abarth 130. He went wide to get around them and then oversteered just a little out of that corner, getting close to the Armco but managing to pull it off and getting the position.
That's the magic of street racing. There is no dirt to just run a wheel over or just have a little bit of a sideways. No forgiveness here. We've got walls and banks, all these obstacles, and you just cannot get out of line. So that the neatest driver, who applies the power to the maximum amount of road usage, but not that little bit over the top, is the one who's going to go fastest. And Georgie Fury is doing this.
Let's go down to the pits with Neil Crompton, see if we can get a word with Perkiner Addison's co-driver, Gary Croft.
The driver of the Volvo who was involved with Tony Longhurst just a few moments ago was Gary Croft. Gary, what happened?
Just driver error. I touched the barrier up here, or I shouldn't have, and lost control of the car.
What sort of damage have we got on the car?
Really extensive by the look of it, but might get it going again.
So the car that finished third in last year's race is going to be stuck in the pits for some time.
I'm afraid so.
Hard luck for Gary Croft, co-driving with Perkiner Addison, and there's the man we've been looking for, Gricey. After all the bad luck and getting the car to the start line and looking like he was going to be competitive again, what hard luck for Grice.
The car is staying in New Zealand. I believe Graham Cameron has bought the car, at least with the Union shipping side there. Grice hasn't got to worry about sending it home, but a frustrating run for him. He's out of the race very, very early. However, the great scrap continues up the front between George Fury and Armin Hahne. Fury having a couple of spots of bother in traffic. We saw one of them on replay only a short time ago, and that has enabled Armin Hahne to close up dramatically in the last lap and a half. There's the gap. There's Hahne going through. Fury, Hahne and car number 52 on the boil in the Jag XJS and looking sharp at the stage of the race.
Lap time has dropped about 2 seconds from the beginning of the race, probably as a result of the slower entry now to the Dunlop Bridge. That certainly would be a bit of a worry for anyone approaching. They wouldn't like to get the car hung out a bit and take a wide line and suffer the embarrassment of hitting a parked car. So certainly 1 to 2 seconds down, running around the 1:38, 1:39 second lap.
Once again down the start, finishing straight. There's Fury. Here's Hahne splitting the slower cars, running very, very nicely indeed, sorting the traffic out well. And there's the gap back to Larry Perkins, running in third, going through in the white Commodore. Fourth is the orange Commodore. Fifth is John Harvey. Sixth is Peter Brock. And back behind them is Jim Richards.
In fact, Brock has got back in front of Harvey now. One wonders if he's going to try and pick up the pace and pull back the places that he lost initially. Seemed to have a problem with the car. Either that or he decided that the pace out front was too hot to run for 4 hours. There's Crosby and Perkins. Brock and Harvey.
Tom Walkinshaw at the moment, some 32.5 seconds behind the race leader Fury, and slowly dropping back each lap. He's losing almost a second a lap. He lost 2.5 seconds on the last lap, getting mixed up in a little bit of traffic there, but it doesn't really look like he's having a big charge at the moment. But of course, we've still got a long way to go, but it's most unusual to see Walkinshaw this far back.
We'll attempt to get a word with Walkinshaw's crew. They've got radio contact with the car, although we understand the reception's not brilliant because of the buildings around the circuit, and they may just have had an inkling of what the problem is. Tom Walkinshaw languishing back there at the moment, and not on the kind of pace we would have expected from him. He dropped back fairly early on, and seemed to settle to a pace that was about a second off what we'd expect from him.
The thing is with Walkinshaw particularly, and the Jag team, is they will pick a lot of time up, I would believe, during their pit stops. They are just so professional, so quick, so slick, and if there is a tyre problem, they'll have a new set of rubber on the car, and they'll have Walkinshaw out very quickly indeed. That's surmising that he hasn't got a major problem there, a gearbox problem. The Jags have been known to be a little heavy on gearboxes.
Well, we'll have to have a look in just a moment as Peter Brock is approaching Graham Crosby and looking to pluck back another place. One of those he lost. You see Brock there right on the tail of Crosby. Having got past Harvey again, he's now chasing the Cros and hoping to pluck back that place as well. He's got a job ahead of him to pull back the lead that has been lost. And I think that the gap between first and second, between George Fury and Ahmed Hanna, is closing as well.
This is a good scrap. Crosby, Brock on the prowl. Harvey sitting one back behind them as they come steaming down to the left-hander. And here is Crosby in the middle of the racetrack. Brock right behind him as they go through. And Brock is almost on the tail now of Graham Crosby and applying plenty of pressure. Harvey just sitting back behind the boss at 0.5. He'll be there to strike when the occasion arises.
All of this, Tony, is really helping Larry Perkins pull away. Like, he's not in the Schaefer straight there at all, so he's got a good gap. Now Cross is having to be a little bit defensive to make sure that Brocky doesn't find an easy gap, so the attitude will be now to hold on to his place, and Larry, in Colin Giltrap's owned Holden Commodore, is streaking away in second place. Now that's something that probably HDT hadn't counted on, seeing Larry going so well. Colin Giltrap, no doubt clapping his hands. As you well know, Colin Giltrap, a man of support of many, many cars. I think today he'll have the Holden hat on.
The news we have from the Tom Walkinshaw team is that Tom Walkinshaw has picked up the pace and is now in fact lapping quicker than Ahmed Hanna in the car in second place. So we may see a move there very shortly.
Here comes Brock coming up, looking for an inside run. We'll follow that. There's the Sierras going through, coming down to the hairpin corner. Crosby still holding it clear of Peter Brock in 0.5. Harvey's right up on the back bumper. Harvey going through on the inside, is he?
Well,
it's a wise move.
If he has, he's in contravention of the flags, because the yellow flags are out of that corner, and I don't know what for, but certainly it's supposed to be a no overtaking situation. Maybe the fact that the track is clear gives those drivers the attitude that, well, they don't really have to take much notice of those signs anymore.
Well, if he was attempting a passing manoeuvre, didn't pay off. Brocky regained that spot on the road ahead of John Harvey, so they're having a great scrap, the two team drivers for the Mobil Holden Dealer Team operation. Just ahead of them is Graham Crosby. He's got a good run here in the traffic. He's probably pulled out about 50 or 60 metres over Brock, keeping in mind last time up here, Brock was sitting right on the boot lid of Graham Crosby.
And I think Cros is just about to make some more advantage going around this complex, having put a car between them. No, Brock has got that back now, but Cros managing to fill 20 or 30 metres by getting a car between himself and the Holden Dealer Team cars, running around there together. So Crosby gets a respite again.
This is the hairpin that some of the drivers have been complaining about. It's sort of almost like a funnel. 3 cars wide going in and 1 coming the other side. And Crosby now heads round towards the stricken Nissan Skyline of Ken Beja. There it is, parked in the corner. A very, very expensive barrier, that's for sure. But we certainly hope that as the race goes on, the tyres come down on the circuit. It gets a little bit more slippery, but it's not used as a buffer. But a great shame there for the Bajan Balcott car, the new look Windows Nissan that was going so well yesterday in practice. John Harvey a little bit closer now, moving in on Peter Brock. Crosby having that small lead of his taken away by 2 or 3 car lengths. Grand little battle going on here between these 3 very experienced Commodore men.
can tell you that those 3 Commodores are all running Dunlop DO3 tyres, so there isn't going to be an advantage or a disadvantage between either car on tyres, and that's been a feature in the past where one would have Pirelli, one would have Yokohama, and so on. So we've got 3 very equal cars, the HDT cars built obviously at their own workshops. The Crosby car, in fact, a previous HDT car built for the Benny Holm entry last year for the Goldcorp Corporation, Ray Smith, and you may remember holding a good place last year until a gear lever broke. But Graham Crosby leading the GMH HDT cars.
Well, he loves that too. Privateer. He's had some help from the Brock operation getting back on the track after Wilkinson shunted the car this morning. But he's picked the pace up, and it's great to see Crosby so competitive after that hit with the car.
He obviously must have had the checkbook out, because getting them in front of him wasn't part of the deal. Cros not giving way at all to the Holden Dealer Team. Brock pushing him a few laps ago, then losing a little bit of a gap on him, and now trying to pick it back up and get close enough to Cros to press him and hopefully make him make a mistake. You've been waiting a long time, I think, for Cros to do that.
From a driver's point of view, though, Tony, it doesn't really matter who holds what place at this point, as long as the pace is running hot. And I'm sure Peter and John Harvey won't be upset being behind Cros, as long as the pace is good. Now, we're getting back into the 36s, 37s, so that's fast enough. I mean, we're not even 1 hour over, and as long as they can keep that freight train going, keep moving through the traffic, and get closer and closer, that's what they will be happy with.
And now down in the pits, Alan Grice, who's had troubles already during this race. He's in the pits with Neil Crompton.
Peter, it's been a week of trouble for Alan Grice. The car's parked up the backside of the circuit. What happened?
Broke a tail shaft right in the middle of the spline, where the old story, we've never ever done it before, and it was a new one also.
Is that likely to have come out of the accident over the last day?
I suppose you've got to in the end put it down to that. You'll never ever know, but one of the 2 thumps that it's taken has probably put some sort of a hairline crack in there, I guess, but it hasn't happened to us before. We regard it now. It used to be our weakling, and like all weaklings, we've fixed it up so well that we started to regard it as our strong point.
Better luck next time.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks, Gricey.
Alan Grice talking to Neil Crompton down in the pits. A disappointed man, obviously, but he takes it philosophically. He knows that that is motor racing. And you must remember with these cars that while they look like the cars you buy off the showroom floor, they are purpose-built race cars, and everything in them is being stretched to the limit for a race like this for 4 hours. So you've got to expect something to break now and again. Not to suggest that the same thing is likely to break on your own car, on your own Nissan Skyline, not unless you're going to run it in a race like this and for 4 hours at this kind of pace. George Fury starting to pull away just a little now. Looking at Fury coming into the picture, there's a big empty space back there between he and Armin Hanna.
The gap's around about 8.5 seconds now, and Tom Walkinshaw, in the second of the Jaguars on the road here at the Nissan Mobil 500 of Wellington, is now back out to some 36.5 seconds from the race leader.
Waiting for the race leader, George Fury, and here he comes in car number 30, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Looking sharp out there today, the Tal Malmo farmer. Will reap a harvest by the time the 4 hour mark goes down in the Nissan Mobil 500. Traffic has played well into his hands. Armin Hanna made a charge about 10 or 15 laps ago, but Fury's been able to hold station and actually increase just marginally over Armin Hanna. Hanna's greatest problem is the fact that Perkins is closing on him.
Looking at George Fury, Mike, you've seen a lot more of the Nissan Skylines in competitive form than we have over in Australia. What's the reliability record like?
It started off being fair and quickly developed to excellent. They have a brilliant team headed by Freddie Gibson. They are very professional yesterday. And just to give you an idea, they have the tyres for the pit stop here in the Nissan team, as you can see, already preheating. So they are very, very professional in their approach to racing. And I think you will find by the time that George Fury comes in for his pit stop, his co-driver, 21-year-old Glenn Seaton, will be able to climb in the car and do exactly the same time laps, lap after lap. Here's the gap. George Fury goes through. We look down to the end of the straight and you will see Armin Hanna. Here he is on his way down, coming to us now. Then the gap back to Larry Perkins. Hanna goes through. Larry Perkins is the next car approaching, the white Commodore. Then back behind them, you'll see Graham Crosby on the inside of the BMW. Behind him, Peter Brock, and then John Harvey. That's the split of the field, first back to 8th at this stage of the event.
All of this information, what's not being relayed between driver and team by radio telephone, is of course being relayed by the conventional method of lap boards. And each team will know what the gaps are between theirs and the rest of the cars that they're competing immediately against, so that each driver knows precisely what he's got to do with his race plan.
We've seen Tom Walkinshaw go through, Stephen Soper and Jim Richards also go through, so a lot of the cars being lapped, but the race, and we really do still have a race going on with George Fury, Armin Hana, the gap opening and then closing again, depending on how much traffic the race leader runs into.
Jim Richards and Trevor Crowe will be hoping their trump card is the one pit stop in the race, remembering that the big cars traditionally have to go for 2 stops, and at an average time of about 30 to 40 seconds in and out. That sort of advantage gets eroded if that little black BMW of Jim Richards and Crowe can just miss that one stop. So look for some action from Jim and Trevor late in the race. At this stage, they're in the sleeper position, around about 10th place.
Race leader, Georgie Fury in car number 30. Peter Jackson, Nissan Skyline, coming up on the Medecky Turbo Sierra. The two of them gunning down to the next left-hander. And the Sierra's running very competitively. The one leaving not much room there, obviously not checking in the mirrors, or at least making at this stage Fury race for it. I think that's why they had mirrors, but nevertheless, he's engrossed with what he's doing, and Fury still plugs away there, sitting in behind the Turbo Sierra. Now comes down the inside of him to the next corner. We'll see whether he gives away. Barely he does, so Fury manages to hold that gap over Armin Hana, and Hana still having his hands full, obviously, with Larry Perkins. We'll wait for Armin Hana to come through beneath the Foster's Bridge. This will give you some idea of the gap. Here's second. Coming through now, Hana in car number 52. Perkins was much closer, so you'll find now that Hana has got the break in traffic over Perkins, who was probably only about 3 seconds behind him the last time around. Hana in car number 52 coming down to the hairpin. As we mentioned before on our telecast, the car a little skaty that time under braking. I think, David, they'd be looking at perhaps pad changes for the Jags for this race.
Well, Tom was quite happy on the brake wear situation this morning, Mike. He said he hadn't even got to use the water injection system yet. He felt there was no need to, and that was his little trump card he was going to wait for. So at some point, predetermined by the field. Now, we've got a Sierra in trouble. Not an uncommon sight. They are known to go away and sulk after about half an hour into a race. This would be the Medecky Hawker. So we've got a lot of smoke from the right rear. In fact, it was got the car problem. Although the axles come loose, so the wheel is hopping around. So maybe a touch of a curve, broken a hub, broken a support point. And he's going to try and make it back to the pits and see what can be done.
I think he might be lucky to make it back to the pits with 4 wheels. They've been known to drive on 3, but Andrew Medecky with a real problem on his hands there. It doesn't really look repairable, and certainly his pace was not such that you expect him to feature in the race henceforth.
This car has just about been doomed, I think, since it arrived in New Zealand. It's had all sorts of work done on it. This is the Penny Farthing Cycle Shop Sierra. David, you've had some experience with this car as well.
Well, I had an experience with the car, Brian, and really in motor racing terms, it's become to be known as Enterprise New Zealand. No matter what it does, it goes out and breaks a mast or a sail, or the bung falls out of it and the water all leaks in. So unfortunate to see it. It had a lot of potential. And I'm quite surprised, actually, to see that the Eggenberger car, which was the Steve Soper Neville Crichton entry, not quite as fast as we would have believed it was going to be. Mike, it did win the Estoril round of the European Touring Car Championship last race, and we probably expected a lot more from it. However, it's early times, only 45 minutes or so into the event, and it is an endurance race after all.
Medecky heading to the pit area now, and here he comes. They have a little work to do on that. fender, rubbing back against the tyre, and of course one of the pivot points that David mentioned. In fact, he's done a good job to even make it back to the pit area. He's coming into his pit bay now, and our cameras are on the spot. So they'll go to work on the car to try and get it back out on the racetrack as if at all possible.
Well, the man in the red jumper there, Randall Edgell, is as good a mechanic as you'll find around the place. No doubt if it can be fixed, he will have it fixed. But I don't like their chances of getting back into the race in any competitive form. Certainly the car has a history of breakdowns. After 22 laps, those are the positions. George Fury in the lead from Armin Hana, Graham Crosby, Peter Brock, John Harvey and Tom Walkinshaw. Race leader George Fury, little Nissan Skyline. Just opting to stay behind that car number 41, Bruce Fowler and Kirk Stoneman's Corolla GT, until he got through the Nissan Mobil gates and opting for safety. As we've seen on several occasions from George Fury, he's certainly a very sensible driver in his approach to getting through traffic. He's well aware that when you come up on some of these back markers, you may be arriving so quickly that they don't know you're there. On a circuit, that's an advantage. You're past before they know it. On a street circuit, the imminent danger is that they will not see you and move over at precisely the wrong moment, and there's no runoff area to get away. Here's Armin Hana, still holding down that second place.
A better run in this NISSAN Mobil 500 for Armin Hana. Of course, last year he was involved in a shunt in the first corner at the hairpin and was losing fuel on the Rover, and that ultimately put paid, and of course the car went out of contention halfway through the event. So he's well positioned at this stage. The Jag still looking very, very strong. Running second on the road, Larry Perkins is third, and race leader, of course, George Fury in car number 30, the Nissan Skyline Turbo.
Lap time starting to slow off just a little to what we'd expect for the race pace. Most of them around the 141 to 143 mark, with the odd 137 being turned in by George Fury in the Nissan Skyline. He certainly hasn't got off the pace. He's looking to make it an hour-long break on the field. Their pit stops will be quick. They have the tyres warming already, and he's out of reach of Armin Hana at the moment.
The battle's still going on further down the field there. Graham Crosby moved away by 4 or 5 car lengths now from 0-5. Peter Brock in the first of the Mobil Dealer Team Commodores. Just leaving our screen now. This is Brock. This car was actually sold a few days ago, some $80,000 Australian. We had a chat to Peter yesterday in the pits, and he was telling us that it's around about $110,000 to build the car, and it has been sold to an Australian at $80,000 without spares, just as you see the car now.
That's not bad, Brian, when you consider just one wheel for that car there, those little white things with the black bits around. They're $2,000 each. That's new Momo Italian prices, and the way they get beaten to death around here today, I think there will be a lot of Momo business going the way of Italy after the Wellington 500 NISSAN Mobil race.
John Harvey dropping back a little bit there. Perhaps hooked up in a little bit of traffic. Certainly doesn't take much to lose ground on here, and the driver in front can use the cars that he's lapping very much to his advantage, particularly if he picks on a very tight, twisty part of the circuit.
Well, Peter Brock has thus far made no more impression on Graham Crosby, certainly not in the last 5 or 6 laps. Brock at the moment happy to sit where he is. Cros keeping on excellent pace, and Brock unable to close that gap.
Off Major Tom. In fact, it's going to be an easier battle than he thought to race an XJS. I'm quite sure Jimmy Richards didn't imagine he could come up on Tom quite so quickly.
Well, it hasn't got the horsepower, the grunt coming out of the corners, but the car will run at that pace all day. And that's what Walkinshaw is now finding out. He'll run away a little from the BMW in straight line speed, but watch Richards start to close it up from this point of the track. Closes up dramatically here behind Tom Walkinshaw. Steve Soper sitting right in behind Jim Richards. He hasn't been too far off the bumper of Walkinshaw all day. Jim doing a great job in the Archibald 635.
Now, if Walkinshaw decides that he needs to drive a little defensively, it's too late. He's past Jim Richards up under Walkinshaw. That's superb driving. And now Soper will take some incentive from that and see if he can get up with Tom Walkinshaw as well. He's closed the gap and come with Jim Richards.
We'd have to imagine that's a brake problem on Major Tom, Tony.
Here's the replay for us. And there's Jimmy Richards going down straight beneath Tom Walkinshaw, takes the spot away and beckons Steve Soper to do a little more of the same.
I have to agree with you, David, and that it does appear that the brakes that we've been talking about all week with Tom Walkinshaw's Jaguar may in fact be the problem. Jim Richards getting by him just a little too easily there. Let's see what Steve Soper now in the Sierra can do behind Walkinshaw. He will have taken certainly some heart from the fact that Jim Richards got by that easily.
There's Richards going through, coming down to the hairpin. And now we'll look at the dice back behind. Here comes Soper down on the inside. Sorry, Tom.
Certainly, I think that's conclusive, Mike. It certainly seems to be a brakes problem.
Well, the other thing that you could take from that, Tony, is that Tom's not even making it a contest. He's leaving the gap wide open so that the people can get through without fight. The acceleration rate, the engine sound is still good. The turn-in, the cornering speed still looks good. So it's just stopping those 1,450 kilos. Here we go, Stephen Soper. Nicely up the inside. Tom leaving plenty of room. Soper to turn in. Hasn't even got to go too wide out. Not a problem. And away to go.
You can rest assured that if Tom Walkinshaw thought there was any show of doing anything about that, he would certainly not have left it as wide open as that. A very, very competitive driver. So we can only assume that it is a problem with the car, and certainly narrowing it down, as Dave Oxton has just said, it would appear to be brakes.
Beautiful shot from our chopper, showing the harbour here at Wellington as the drivers make their way onto the dock area. Race leader is still George Fury in car number 30, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Armin Hana in the XJS Tom Walkinshaw Jaguar 52 running in second. And of course Larry Perkins in car number 11, the NZ Connectors Commodore, in third spot. Graham Crosby, of course, in fourth, Peter Brock and John Harvey. That's the order at the front of the field. Still plenty of interest going as Hana comes down here, and of course right behind him is Larry Perkins. Perkins has made up a lot of ground in the last 3 laps of this race, sitting right behind the second place XJS J52.
That's a big move from Larry Perkins. The order at the moment is Fury, from Hana, from Perkins, from Crosby, from Brock, from Harvey, from Richards, and Soper. We understand from Walkinshaw's pit crew that they have a tyre problem and that they will be in the pits within the next couple of laps. We'll get a check on that. Here's Armin Hana still holding that second place from Larry Perkins. And that's looking like quite a dice now. Perkins has made up so much ground in the last 4 or 5 laps. We have to assume that he can get close enough to Armin Hana to do something about it. Perkins looking good in the Commodore.
Well, maybe, in fact, the tyre trouble is affecting both Jaguars, because I'd have to think that both Hahn and Walkinshaw are slowing down rather than the other cars making up ground. The Jaguar is using the Kevlar construction Denlock Dunlop tyre, slightly different, or should we say majorly different, from the rest of the field. They are Dunlops, but they're using rocket ship technology in the form of this Kevlar construction.
It's only a matter of time, I think, before Perkins takes over second position.
He showed him plenty of concrete that time on the approach to the hairpin. Inviting Larry, if he wanted to duck under, by all means go ahead. But I think you'll find down the long straights, there are only a couple here, that Hahn will get away, but Perkins will close up on the tight sections of the racetrack, so that could well be their problem. The Achilles heel today, maybe, of the Jags is breaking. They've had gearbox problems fairly prevalent in the last couple of races. But there's Perkins, the NZ Connectors Commodore, Colin Giltrap, the owner of that car. He'd be delighted at this stage with the charge that Larry Perkins is making through the field here today.
Comes to the pits in the car number 51, the Jaguar XJS. He's got a left rear tyre problem. You can see the crew working on the back of the car. As a normal precaution in a pit stop, the team will put at least 1 churn of fuel in to perhaps save a stop later in the race. But quite obviously the tyre that's come off the car has quite graphically overheated. 19.5 seconds have gone now. Tom Walkinshaw is out of the car. Win Percy is in the car, the man that battled for last year's European Touring Car Championship. Andy Morrison, the team manager, standing by the side of the car, controlling and the car leaves the pits in a time of 34.1 seconds and a very, very professional stop from TWR.
Straight down on the inside looking for an opening here. So he's done exceptionally well. Oh, Cross. Not much room there, and he's trying to tuck down on the inside as they come out of there. Brock is just back in arrears behind them. One of the BMWs has stopped on the approach to Strathmore Corner.
In fact, that's the John Sorensen, Brian Musgrove entry, car number 18. In fact, one of the cars that Jim Richards and John Morton drove last year in this event, unsuccessfully and unreliably.
Here's Cross once again closing on Armin Hahner as they come back onto the start finishing straight here at Wellington. Hahn will be able to out-accelerate, zips out behind one of those slower cars, car number 52, as they go down the front straight.
Well, we'd have to imagine Armin Hahner is in the same sort of trouble as Major Tom, and really only backing up what many people predicted, that XJS has had a consumption of appetite for tyres.
It's really having a big go. It's actually getting a little bit tail happy now. We're just noticing on some of these slow corners that Hahner is oversteering, the tail end of the car coming out. He knows he's very much under pressure there from Graham Crosby, but Crosby's got about another half an hour before he's due in for his first stop, which will be another set of tyres and a full tank of gas to hand over to Wayne Wilkinson. But then we look at the driver pairings of, you know, Wilkin versus Denny Holm it's going to be, and I think Holm's perhaps going to have the upper hand, but let's just wait and see. It's still a long way to go here at Wellington.
Well, as they come up, you'll notice how Hahner, I think, is holding up Graham Crosby. That is why Peter Brock is coming from the clouds and closing up again on the tail of Crosby. Crosby has to pick his mark when he can nail Hahner. Hahner's running in amongst the slower traffic. Actually, all three get the best of that one as they come into the next left-hander. That's Strathmore Sports' turn, the left-hander, as they come out of there. Acceleration, of course, of the XJS comes into play here. But as they close up into the tight section, you'll notice Crosby will be all over the rear of the XJS.
Be intriguing to watch them over the bridge and see what Cros can do. Obviously, the straight line speed goes to the injected V12 of the Jag with 500 odd horsepower, 40 or 50 horsepower more than even the Optimist would hope for from a Commodore.
If you thought Brock's, there's Hahner going into the pits now. He's obviously going into correct tyre problems that they've encountered with the, well, very much sideways getting out of there, so he's accelerating into the pits. And comes in now. This will be for a tyre stop.
And Denny Holm is getting in the car, so it looks as though there's a driver change as well. They're taking the opportunity to put Denny in it. Armin Hahner having had excellent lap times early on. We can only assume that Denny Holm, as has been the case in the past, will look after the car, but will be on similar lap times to Armin Hahner.
And as, of course, we followed car number 52 coming into the pit area, Peter Brock just lined up Cros for a pass down the outside, and I believe has been able to affect that. So Brock's coming back into contention.
And just reminding you that George Fury is no less than 30 seconds in the lead from Larry Perkins and Dave Parsons.
So Cros having conceded there to Peter Brock, third place. And all the while they're in the pits, they're having a little problem with this pit stop.
They've got a much bigger problem than tyres in this right front corner.
Neil Crompton has been down in the pit area and is reporting throughout the day. He already has the timer going. He said, can we just get the wheel and secure it first? Sorry, Denny, that was
a problem with the wheel.
Bit of a blue.
You picked up the wrong wheel gun. They have one gun to undo and one to do up. And obviously we had the doing up, doing nothing.
As you can see then, the changeover between Armin Hahner and Denny Holm was quite dramatic. When they got to about the 59-second mark, they thought the car was ready. They put the front left tyre on, but it wasn't properly affixed. There was real drama. They had to jack the car back up, and in fact, they got away from the pit area in a time of 1 minute and 14 seconds. Not good pit work from TWR.
Neil Crompton reporting pit side.
Now where we expect the first scheduled pit stops fairly shortly. And it'll be intriguing to see just how long the rubber is lasting on the various cars. We've already seen the rather poor record of the Jaguars in terms of tyre wear.
That's dead right. I think a lot of teams, though, would have looked at the conditions, looked at the track, and they would have made their compound changes quite early or made their compound decisions rather quite early in the day. One thing to worry about on this particular track is that we've got to remember that one swallow certainly does not make a summer, and it's a question certainly of being there at the end of the 4 hours. And I'm sure as George Fury no doubt thinks, he's got to conserve his car, and he's got to try and make sure that he's there when the checkered comes down at the end of the day.
37 seconds the gap now between Fury and Perkins. The order: Fury, Perkins, Brock, Crosby, Harvey, Richards, Soper and Charlie O'Brien. Tom Walkinshaw languishing down in 9th place at the moment after his pit stop. The other Jaguar, the rather unfortunate pit stop, is back in 10th place after taking far too long to fit a new set of tyres.
Once again, along the waterfront area, we pick up our race leader via our helicopter, showing just how tight this circuit is. Sometimes with the cars turning from left to right-hand turns, you don't really get the layout of the circuit. But from the air, you see just how tough this course is on man as well as machine. I think you'd agree with that, Lou.
Well, for sure, this circuit is an absolute killer, and as we've already seen from the likes of Graham Crosby this morning, or Wayne Wilkinson really, in the warm-up session, one mistake and you have a major problem. And as I say, this race is 4 hours long. They have to conserve their cars, they have to conserve their tyres, and as I say, they just have to be there when that checkered flag comes down.
Of course, that's not the way they run touring car races in Europe. Over there, the rules are that you start off as quickly as possible, and if it looks like it's going to break down, you blow it up.
Well, I don't know. I think that the approach to this race, you know, we've had a couple of drivers critical of the circuit, but let's keep in mind the only drivers who have been critical of the circuit are the ones who have bent motor cars on it. It's the same set of rules for everyone. All those who are still out there running will be all smiles and very complimentary about it. It is a street circuit. It's different from a natural racetrack, and you have to drive it accordingly. And, you know, for others to jump out and start bad-mouthing the racetrack, I mean, nobody asked them to come.
I thought that was amazing, actually, that Cross, even in the space of a day, had changed his view when he'd come into contact, or his co-driver had, with the wall.
No, that's okay. Cross will change his mind 4 times before the race is over.
Actually, just on the subject of Graham Crosby, I can only really consider it ironic that last year in the BMW, he actually caused around about $9,000 worth of damage. And when I say he caused it, he was actually driving when there was $9,000 worth of damage on the BMW. And he certainly had a different frame of mind last year that he has this year.
Well, Cross, one of the great colourful characters of motor racing, whether it's on 2 wheels or 4. George Fury, the quiet little farmer from Australia, in the Nissan Skyline. And let's get a word down on the pits, if we can, with Tom Walkinshaw.
Remember the steering we gave the Wellington weather? We said it was cold, windy, and it was going to be a wet race. It hasn't turned out that way. In fact, it's quite warm. The surface of the road is much hotter than people predicted. One man that was caught out was Tom Walkinshaw, and Tom, that Dunlop tyre became rather stripped much earlier than I guess you would have expected.
Yeah, we're showing some signs of duress.
That's an understatement. Tom, were you surprised at the hot pace early on with the leaders?
No, it wasn't really very fast. We knew that it was going to be difficult in the beginning, so we decided one car would try and cover the leader, and we would just keep our other car out of trouble, because you couldn't come through from 10th up to the front. So things were just fairly well the way we were expecting up to now, except for the problem with the tyres, which meant we were about a second slower than we were expecting for about 20 laps there.
Does that now mean that you've changed compound and perhaps gone something to a little firmer?
Yeah, we changed on a harder tyre, and we made the tyres last long enough so that we don't have an extra pit stop, so we're not really in too much trouble.
Okay, best of luck for the rest of the afternoon. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Interesting tactics from Tom Walkinshaw. They've gone to a harder compound. Now, obviously, they needed a harder compound, but Tom's claiming they've gone to one that is hard enough to last them, really, to their scheduled pit stops. It'll be intriguing to see if his theory works out. And we'd have 2 Jaguars in that case, because we assume they fitted the same tyres to Armin Hunter's car, with Denny Holman in it at the moment. We'll assume that both of them have been shod the same, and that they might be late sleepers, because they're certainly capable of race pace, and we'd expect them to come through a little later on in the race. And certainly that the Skyline and Commodore dominance at the moment won't be lasting for the duration.
Here's Tim Slako, Kiwi by birth, and settled now in Western Australia in the Think Pink Rover Vitesse, sponsored by Alf Barbagallo Cars of Western Australia. Having a good scrap here, let me tell you. That's, in fact, if it is Tim at the wheel, but he enables the Jag to go through. He campaigns the races that suit him basically in Western Australia and South Australia, makes an annual trek to Bathurst, the Adelaide Street Meet, and of course has crossed the Tasman to run here this weekend.
And his co-driver Inky Tulloch, who's the mayor of Mataro in Southland, one of the better-known New Zealand drivers in Big Banger saloon cars, has been an exceptionally fast driver over a number of years. More recently has tried rallying and now is into Group A. Not with a great deal of success yet, but you can bet that if Inky Tulloch puts his mind to Group A racing, he'll have a competitive car, and he's certainly a competitive driver.
It's a very well turned out car, an Andy Rouse Rover Vitesse. I'm not quite sure if I'm struck on the colour scheme, but if they run short of sponsorship, I guess they can always approach Max Factor.
I would have thought it'd be a commentator's dream, Mike. You certainly couldn't miss it.
Larry Perkins coming through in car number 11. Larry, of course, still running second on the road. Peter Brock is third, so that gap has closed up a little between second, third. Perkins there in the 11 car, the NZ Connectors Commodore. And Peter Brock, there's Tony Longhurst, who went in earlier after that prank, which Tony was an innocent victim of. And he is back out on the road. And a fellow who I think theoretically should have won this race last year, Tony Longhurst, absolutely superb in the wet. And it was a great disappointment that he went out with about 5 or 6 laps to go.
The gap now between Fury and Perkins is 40.3 seconds, so Fury's still pulling away at a reasonable sort of rate, and I'd have thought that the race must be going precisely to his plan.
I would think so. They're a professional team. They'll stretch the car as hard as the car can possibly run. They know the limits of the car, despite the fact that celebrates probably its international debut out of Australia here today. But they've done a lot of work. They've run any number of kilometres on the car, and they know its breaking point. And I think George knows the limitations of street racing. He's not likely to poke it in the concrete and come back and apologise.
Armin Hana trying to work his way back up the field after that disastrous pit stop. And the order is still Fury from Perkins, from Brock, from Crosby. It's a magnificent sight, this circuit on race day, now extended 3.2 kilometres, a superb long circuit with plenty of long straights for the bigger cars to stretch their legs. And despite all the comments we've heard about it being a car braking circuit, it's the same for everybody, of course. And those that are still on the circuit are the ones with any chance of winning.
Here's Graham Crosby, car number 6, coming into the pit area. This will be a critical stop for Graham.
It's around about 7 minutes ahead, Mike, of his scheduled pit stop, but that's pretty close. The car remaining on the ground. They're not changing the tyres on this, which is quite a surprise. Topping it up with fuel, up goes the bonnet, so this spells a problem for Crosby, there's no doubt about it.
I noticed that Wayne Wilkinson wasn't even attempting to get into the car to take over the drive. Obviously there is a problem there. Wayne Wilkinson still standing without his helmet on. See if we can get a word in the window with Cros and see exactly what the problem is. Let's go down to the pits and see if we can get a word with the Cros.
But we might peer in there as well and just see what's going on. They're lifting what's called the cold air box away from the front of the car, and judging by my guess at this stage of the game, I'd say that the car is overheated quite drastically. Might see whether we can have a quick yarn with Cros. He's talking with Les Small at the moment, the man that builds these engines, and Les is the engineer that in fact is behind Alan Grice's efforts in the European Touring Car Championship. Excuse me, Graham. What's the problem, Cros?
We appear to have a fairly hot running engine. The problem being that, you know, when you're following somebody really close, you've got no cooling because of the amount of air that they drag behind you. So it's impossible to follow real close. And the crash damage we done, I think we might have blocked a bit of the filter. So that's really where we are.
Perhaps loosened something up in the cooling system, which has now floated back in and caused an overheating problem.
Oh, that's too technical. We just don't have enough cooling going to the engine. Oil temperatures run about 145, which is about 20 to 25 too much. And water temperatures about 120, which is about 20 too much, 25 too much.
All right, Cros, I'll let you get back to it. Thanks, mate. We'll talk to you later. So Graham Crosby in strife in the Wank Commodore, and as you can well see, the car is overheating.
of the pit stop, of course, are crucial. The time taken in there is time off the racetrack. And the minor hassles that you have can turn into major ones when you get back on and find that you took a minute and a half instead of 35 seconds for the pit stop. It's usually, these days, if everything else goes right, it's usually the amount of time it takes to fill up with gas that determines the length of the pit stop. Now Peter Brock has moved into second place, with Larry Perkins having pitted. Obviously Brock is going to have to pit shortly as well, around the scheduled time for a pit stop. The race has been running an hour and 25 minutes, and the order is Fury, Brock, John Harvey, then Crow and Richards, then Soper, and then Perkins. After that pit stop, he's dropped back just a little, but on new rubber, he'll be out there on good lap times and pulling back those places as quickly as he possibly can.
The man that's been working very hard in the NZ Commodore over the last 40 or so laps is Larry Perkins from Australia. Larry, that looks to be one of the toughest stints you've done for a long time.
You're not wrong. No, the old, I got the right connections there with that NZ machine, I can tell you. It's going real good.
Were you surprised that you were able to haul in the Jags and indeed the dealer team Commodores so early in the race?
I weren't surprised. Maybe they were. I've been testing a long time over the last 3 months. And I know in Australia I've been the only bloke, bar than Nissan, who's been testing. And I think, you know, at this point in time it's certainly paying off. And, you know, I'm not abusing the machinery, and David can lap the same time, and, you know, we've just got to keep it all together.
LP, it's been a while since you've done any endurance racing. You had a couple of goes late last year, but you did have almost 12 months off, and it looks like it's taking its toll.
It is a long time, and, you know, now I've got 19 races ahead of me, though, this year with NZ and Colin Giltrap's group, you know, with these Commodore. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, it looks like you won't be puffing this time next year with that much driving. Good luck, Larry Perkins. Larry Perkins in the NZ Commodore with David Parsons, doing very well.
The Manly frame taking a little bit of a rest there after a hard stint in the car.
Well, they've made their scheduled pit stop, Alan Grice. Maybe Peter Brock's not far away from a driver change either.
No, you'd be looking at about an hour and a half. But it's interesting to see that with the Perkins car going out with fresh tyres, he's back on the same sort of pace as George. So it just indicates the edge has come off George's tyres. And you've got to bear in mind too that Parsons has got 2 or 3 laps, which it takes to get his car operating again on the tyres. So it's indicative that the pace is now settled, and it's very dependent on the effectiveness of tyres.
Obviously, with the weather the way it is, there was no decision made about rain at all, because rain was always a threat this weekend with the forecast, and we've already had a light shower at one stage today.
Yes, the speed with which the weather changes here, though, it's I think there's still so many hours to go. There's still rain's not out of the question yet.
All right, so it's George Fury in the Nissan Skyline with a commanding lead over Peter Brock, who's now moved up into second place. But we suggest that the Holden Dealer Team Commodore, car number 05, is not far away from the first of probably 2 pit stops.
He's on his way in right now, actually. We'll be looking for a very quick stop here. The tyres will definitely be off, and it will be a driver change. Moffat will get in here. But this is a pretty important one for Peter.
Okay, let's watch the action then of Peter Brock's crew. There's the change with Moffat getting in as Peter Brock gets out.
Yes, a little bit of... No, it's okay. It's okay. Now there'll be going to be a lot of interest in those tyres, because what they may be finding is that the tyre they're actually running they'll be able to go softer later in the day, or if there's been a problem, they can go up a compound. But this is a very important tyre.
Come on to 16.
Looks like a smooth change over here. The car down off the jacks.
Now there's a problem there, because Harvey's right in behind him. They haven't been able to get onto Harvey. He's just had to wait for Brock to get out of the road, and that's a problem. That would indicate to me that there's either been a foul up in calling him in. That's unlikely. More than likely, he's had a cough round the back of the circuit, and he's run out of fuel, and he's just had to come in.
Yes, because you'd never put that kind of pressure on a pit crew to do 2 changes on in 2 cars in the space of what, 30 seconds?
No, they've got specialists to do each of the job on both cars, so it's certainly unplanned. I would suggest that he's run out of gas. We can count the fuel tunes going in. We'll see if it takes the full 3. Yes, it has. It's been a full fuel load go in.
All right, thanks, Alan Grice. We'll from you later. In the meantime, back to Tony Palmer and the commentary team upstairs.
You'll notice there an illustration of what we were saying earlier, that you can do up the wheel nuts on the conventional method of attaching wheels in the time it takes to fill it up with gas, rather than using the single wheel nut system, which has the hazard of getting jammed with a cross thread. But that was unscheduled, and that's an indication that either John Harvey had run out of gas, as Alan Grice suggested, or that the tyres had gone off so quickly that he had no option to come in. But even if he had, another lap wouldn't have been too much bother to give the pit crew time to clear it.
Notice one thing, Tony, the Holden Dealer Team did very, very well on that first pit stop, the time of 35.07 seconds. The second one, I think Peter Williams is quite right. I think they might have been caught a little bit unprepared, and the time was actually 46 seconds, which is certainly unusual for such a professional rig. You'd expect around 30 seconds, 35 seconds for a gas up and new tyres. But John Harvey and Neil Lowe, as an excellent driving team, will certainly be looking to finish as the Per Gunnar Anderson Volvo. Not having a great deal of luck today. They had a ding earlier on. They managed to repair things and get Peg and Anderson back in the car. In fact, Gary Croft was driving it in the initial stages, and it now seems that they have an engine problem. Peg and Anderson standing beside the car, but well aware that he's out of it. Meanwhile, John Harvey's in the pits. We'll see if Neil Crompton can... No, in fact, Neil Crompton can't get close to the Holden Dealer Team at the moment. They'll have a lot of things to discuss. And a bit of debriefing there from John Harvey as to how the car is handling, how the tyre wear is going, and how the fuel consumption is going, and what those temperature gauges are reading. Of course, the mechanics and the rest of the crew will want to know every detail.
Of course, they've been running strongly throughout the day with Brock. I would think at this stage Brock came from further back than a Melbourne Cup winner last year. Of course, was almost a lap and then some down on Tony Longhurst until it rained. Now, this is going to put immense pressure on Peter Brock's co-driver Alan Moffat, who really didn't get the best run last year. Went out when he took over at the pit stop on slick tyres, and then of course the heavens opened up. He had to make 2 more pit stops straight after that. But Moffat will take a little longer than Peter Brock to settle down into a pattern. He's the first driver to agree that it does take him just a little while longer, but he will run around all day and the car will stay safe. Mick Webb, of course, is the new team manager for the Holden Dealer Team. It's his first race here today in the streets of Wellington, and I would think that Mick would have things well and truly in hand. Let's find out from Neil Crompton.
It's been a baptism of fire for Mick Webb. He's had all sorts of work in the last 7 days or so. But Mick, that last pit stop when the two boys came in together caused you some problems.
Oh, sort of, yeah. Just a little bit hectic for about 10 seconds, but we worked out okay.
How does that work for you? Do you have enough tyre changes and fuel fillers and things to get away with all that?
Yeah, we'll only have to run one more stop. We're okay now. We've gone over as far as we wanted to go. So now we're going to have to worry about one more stop and then we're home.
Both the drivers happy?
Running like a clock.
What about the tyre condition?
Pardon?
What about the condition of the tyres that came off the car?
They both said, oh, beautiful. No problem with the tyres at all. He didn't even stretch them. He ran to a pace that we decided on, and he now realised he could have gone harder, so we're just now going to pace ourselves to finish the race. Okay. Hopefully 1-2.
Thanks, mate. We'll let you get back to it. Mick Webb, the manager of the Mobil Holden Dealer Team.
And the eternal optimist.
I was going to say, they might have a little Nissan Skyline there to move before they can do that.
I think so. Meanwhile, George Fury. But here's one Nissan Skyline that's certainly trying. And it has a slight problem with keeping the rubber on the road because the back fender is creased all over the wheel and the tyre. And that is a different approach to make it back to the pits. I think he's hooked the tail on a bit of guardrail and squashed everything in on the rubber, and now is trying desperately to make it through to the pit area.
Samsung car of Jeff Burrows and Kerrod Wills. This is its debut meeting here at Wellington for the 1987 Nissan Mobil 500. The car was entered for the Simpson Series a couple of months ago, but I think it's going to be a while before they get this one up and running. They've certainly poured in a tremendous amount of time and effort, and not to even mention the money. Cran Judge, a very successful Auckland businessman, has backed this effort. Kerrod Wills, a very successful Mini 7 driver in the early days, and he ran the GT Series, which is now in its demise. And of course Jeff Burrows, last year winning this particular series in a Mazda RX-7. So it's a brand new car, but it's looking a little bit on the second-hand side at the moment. Mike, the way in which it's steering gives me the impression that perhaps it's bent the diff or something, and this could be a large problem for the boys.
It certainly looks that way. He's trying to make it into the pits. I hope it's wide enough when he goes in there sideways. It's barely wide enough, let me tell you. Now he'll try and keep that in shape as he makes his way down to the pit bay, and with a little luck they might be able to effect repairs, but I tend to agree that they have a slight axle problem there as well.
Yeah, if you thought it was your eyesight, don't adjust your set. Just the way the car's handling.
Naturally, the crew will take to the car and put fresh rubber on it. The guys at the front of the car being a little unaware of what's at the rear of the car, but the fellow who's pulled the outside wheel and tyre to change will know all about it.
They're being incredibly optimistic, but great to see the teamwork that's going on here. I mean, these things really, they can't always be unstoppable. There's a lot that goes on in the back there. It looks possibly a little bit worse than maybe what it really is. It's, you know, once they get the broken bits off the back of this car and have a look at it, it may have just perhaps broken a link down there, but they don't seem to be paying a lot of attention in that right rear corner at the moment.
Well, of course, this is one Nissan Skyline with problems. One that hasn't got any is this, the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline number 30, driven by George Fury, trouble-free. I don't think the car has a mark on it, so George has been able to dictate not only the pace of the race, but also stay out of trouble in the traffic. And the traffic here has been rather horrendous. There's David Parsons, still just ahead of George Fury as they come down the street again. Parsons goes through, Fury behind, so he hasn't been able to put a lap on David Parsons. That might be costly later in this race. We'll wait and see. A lot will depend on the pit stop from George Fury, and with Glenn Seaton taking over the car.
George Fury has completed 58 laps, and the rest of the field 57, 56, and so on down. The order of the top 10 at the moment is Fury and Seaton, Crow and Richards, Crichton and Soper, Brock and Moffat, Perkins and Parsons, O'Brien and McIntyre, and Harvey and Lowe.
Just thinking, Tony, the suggestion is that George Fury will be ready to pit in about 20 minutes, and if he can last out that long, he will have broken the back of just about everyone in this field.
Well, the fact that he only needs one stop, I think, too, is enough to break their back psychologically.
Fine shot there of George Fury in the Peter Jackson Skyline. Just ahead of him, David Parsons in the Larry Perkins NZ Commodore V8. He's trying to scarper away and get as quick as he can from George Fury. He doesn't want a lap put on him at this stage of the event. And while Larry Perkins takes time out in the shade of the pit area, David Parsons, the young Tasmanian, doing a great job in Colin Giltrap's NZ Connectors Commodore.
Well, Lou McKinnon, assuming that the only way the Skyline is going to get beaten is if they have a mechanical or a tyre problem, how would you feel sitting back in the field in 6th or 7th place?
Well, probably a little bit unsettled. It's always great to be sitting in a reliable car and watching the top ones fall out. It's exactly that was the case last year. If it's actually sitting in the car of Jim Richards and Trevor Crow, actually I'd be quite happy. At the moment they're 1 minute 9 seconds behind the Nissan Skyline, and the 635 CSI that will actually get through on one pit stop, I'm sure. And as long as they don't have any problems in the pits and without wanting any malfunction to fall upon the Nissan Skyline, well, they can be in with a chance.
Really surprising, the light tyre wear on this BMW 635 CSI. If you'd seen it a few weeks ago at the Bay Park track, where they were complaining bitterly about the amount of tyre wear, but then so was everybody else. Trevor Crow has felt that this car has worn tyres more than it should right from the outset. It seems to have been the case with this particular car since it was brand new. And here he is on the Wellington waterfront circuit in the Nissan Mobil 500, sitting in an excellent position and really seeming to have the tyres wearing just at the rate he wants them to. Let's go and confirm what the top 10 placings are officially with Peter Williams.
All right, it's George Fury behind the wheel of that Nissan Skyline, the turbocharged car. 59 laps completed. 1 lap ahead of Crow and Richards, now up to 2nd place. The significant point about those two cars, the Skyline in 1st place and the BMW in 2nd place, is that they will probably only make 1 pit stop each. Crichton and Soper In the Ford Sierra, another turbocharged car in third place. Brock and Moffat, the first of the Commodores, in car number 05, followed by Perkins, with Parsons currently behind the wheel of car number 11. That's the NZ Connectors Commodore. And another BMW in sixth place, Charlie O'Brien and McIntyre. Seventh place, Harvey and Lowe in the Commodore. The first of the Jags at the moment holding 8th place, Danny Holm and Armin Hahn, 57 laps completed. Walkinshaw and Percy in 9th place in the second of the Jags. John Billington and Chris Castle, two former Wellington representative golfers turned motor racers, in 10th place in their Commodore. Giddings and Stewart 11th, and Hodgetts and Bagnall completing the top 12. After 59 laps, it is George Fury behind the wheel of the Nissan Skyline who leads. In 13th place, Longhurst and Bryce in a BMW. Mulligan and Hyde in 14th. 15th is Lorimer. 16th place, Baden Hartley. And there's Burrows and Wills. Up to 53 laps. They've had troubles with their Nissan Skyline. Anderson in 18th place at the moment in the Mustang.
And that is the pit chart of George Fury, the leading competitor in the Nissan Skyline at the moment, being dutifully kept and very, very accurate, as has been the case. Oftentimes when the official systems have broken down, and it doesn't just happen here, there have been one or two teams that have extremely accurate lap charts. George Fury's is one of them.
George's wife, Margaret, doing all of the lap timing for the Peter Jackson Nissan team. And a comfortable advantage at this stage. George Fury holding a one-lap lead over Jimmy Richards, Stephen Soper, Brock Parsons and O'Brien. And looking at pitting for their one and only stop. Oh, dearie me, that was close. It looked like the Medecky Turbo Sierra just coming to an absolute stop right in front of Fury. If he parks it in there, it'll be safe. But I tell you what, that was very, very close indeed.
I'm quite sure that if Mr. Ford had had his way, he'd have had this particular Ford Sierra off the motor racing tracks of New Zealand quite some time ago. It hasn't exactly been a fine example and a fine advertisement for the Ford Motor Company.
Graham Crosby running back out on the circuit again. I just wonder, recapping on that problem that he had with an overheating engine, that perhaps the radiator may have been damaged when Wayne Wilkins had biffed the concrete wall earlier on in the warm-up session this morning.
They're out and circulating, as you say. But at this stage, Andrew Medecky in the Sierra Turbo trying to make his way back to the pits. Looked like the engine just quit on him as they were coming out of the hairburn. There's the Cros Wilkinson entry, the Wayne Computers number 6 Commodore. So they're back out in the racetrack, circulating nicely, but they've lost a lot of time. There's our second place driver, Jimmy Richards, in the Archibald 31-635 BMW. And Jim could be the sleeper in this field. He's one lap down on George Fury. But keep in mind that the Jim and this car will circulate all day. The third spot, of course, Stephen Soper in car number 10, the Ford Sierra. And behind them, of course, Peter Brock, David Parsons taking over, and then Charlie O'Brien. At the wheel, though, Stephen Soper, the little Turbo Sierra Ford. Car that gets the Cosworth treatment in the World, European and Australian Touring Car Championships this year. Neville Crichton, car owner, looking at taking this vehicle to Aussie to run in the Australian Championships. And as soon as he can put his hands on all the Cosworth gear, it'll be a very competitive car.
He has, in fact, bought a Cosworth, which he's hoping will be the car to beat in the World Touring Car Championship, as do several other drivers. A number of them have bought the Cosworth Sierra, the updated 4-valve version of this car. Certainly the original version has not had a great history of reliability. This is one of the more reliable of them. It's had about 5 race starts and has managed to finish 3 of them in good position. Prepared by the Rudi Eggenberger organisation in Switzerland. So the order: Fury and Seaton in the lead, Crow and Richards second, Crichton and Soper third, then Brock and Moffat, Perkins and Parsons, O'Brien and McIntyre, and Harvey and Lowe. And looking at how economical the BMW 635 CSI is for Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards, one has to expect that that is the sleeper, and that is the car to look to should anything go wrong with the Nissan Skyline of George Fury and Glenn Seaton. It certainly doesn't look as though they're going to have a problem with the Skyline, but anything can happen on a street circuit. He may fall on misadventure through somebody else's accident, as Dick Johnson and Alan Grice have pointed out a number of times already today.
Seems to be running quite stiff in the front suspension, this car. Just when it comes into the braking area, you'll notice that the front wheels are actually getting themselves off the ground. But Jim Richards said last night that he was aware of this, and it certainly wasn't a problem for the car, which is beautifully prepared. You could eat your meal off any part of this car, and he's a very, very experienced long-distance driver and a man who rarely gets his feathers ruffled. 1985 Australian Endurance and Touring Car Champion, an extremely impressive list of success behind him. And for those of you who are Jim Richards fans, there's a very, very memorable book out on this extremely colourful Kiwi.
Quite strange, too, that his co-driver, Trevor Crowe, who's been campaigning the car throughout the Simpsons series, is a man who normally likes his cars set up with very soft suspension and a fair amount of travel. He's had some trouble adapting to this BMW and says that particularly on a tight circuit, it's a bit of a handful. You've got to throw it in a corner and oversteer it out, and it's not really the method that he's accustomed to driving with. He normally likes a very soft setup in suspension. Looking at the gap between first and second, that is between the Fury Seaton entry and the Nissan Skyline, and Crowe Richards entry, the BMW, is 1 minute and 8 seconds at this stage.
Well, there's some interesting shots. You've got one of the Sierras slowing up, and it would appear that Wayne Wilkinson in the Commodore, Graham Crosby's car, is also slowing dramatically over the back part of the course.
Richards is really keeping the pace on here, Mike. You can see the tail just starting to come out. He's on the job again. Not that he's been a little bit slack before, but he's really keeping it on. But Wayne Wilkinson would perhaps appear to be in trouble here. This is the no, that's the Andrew Medicki car by the look of it, the Penny Farthing Cycle Shop Sierra, just creeping around there. Perhaps Wayne Wilkinson's problem could well be with the engine having overheated. It could go a little bit further now and be a head gasket problem. We certainly hope not. And at the moment, that's Mike Hall in the car, in a very embarrassing situation, having to stay out of the way on this very narrow street circuit, not upset anybody's lines on the way through and cause a problem.
Not a particularly memorable drive in the Ford Sierra, one of which is still going very well. That's the European one. This, which has been in New Zealand with rather a long history of failure, still seems to be keeping up to that mark of not being reliable for the duration of a 4-hour race.
Just one thing to recall, Tony, just watching as we talk, the Crosby-Wilkinson car disappearing into the pits again. But just one thing to consider, that these drivers here, when they made their suspension decisions, would no doubt have thought that the Wellington weather may well have turned a bit nasty. And just as we speak now, watch, Larry Perkins has just passed the 05 Commodore. It's David Parsons in the car. He's actually passed the 05 Commodore, and Alan Moffat is driving the 05 car.
That's one of the things that I think is interesting, looking at the driver combinations that we talked about earlier on. I wonder, in fact, if Alan Moffat is on the same kind of race pace as you'd expect from Peter Brock. Certainly from my observations, it doesn't look that Moffat is capable of the same kind of lap times, particularly on a street circuit.
Well, we'll certainly have the answer to that a little later in the race. At this stage, David Parsons, an aggressive young racer. Alan Moffat, certainly a little more conservative, but I'll guarantee you that Moffat will still be turning the same lap times at the end of the race. He's a very stylish professional and has quite a job to do in the 05 Commodore of Peter Brock. Obviously, he would like to win the race. Much of how it all pans out will depend entirely on George Fury and the Peter Jackson Nissan team, that appear to only be a couple of minutes away of preparing for their pit stop. We'll call that for you too as we pick up the PJ30's car coming into the pit area. Interesting scrap this between the young lion Parsons and the old stager Alan Moffat.
Interesting too, Mike, that both Perkins and Parsons have been part at some stage of the Holden Dealer Team and now competing against them as privateers.
That's correct. Of course, I'm not quite sure if Larry Perkins would be that close to them. Larry, of course, was a triple Bathurst co-winner. David Parsons has been with the Holden Dealer Team. And here comes the pit stop, the vital pit stop for the Nissan Mobil 500 race leader, George Fury. And there's the man that's about ready to take over from him, 21-year-old Glenn Seaton. The car comes into the pits. Team manager Fred Gibson and the crew go to work. Most of the PJ Nissan pit stops look so laid back and they're so fast. Everyone knows exactly what to do.
Good work with the guns. Tyres all fitted and still waiting for the last drops of gas to go in as they clean the windscreen. A few bugs on the windscreen, the bonnet's up. Just check what it is that they're looking at there. We've got a stopwatch on this pit stop. Bearing in mind the quickest we've seen so far was a 35-seconder from Peter Brock. And they're already over 40 seconds.
As you can well see, the George Fury Glenn Seaton Nissan is in the pits, and they've been in there so far for 55 seconds. They're working on the front of the car because it appears to be overheating quite a lot. As I look down the side of the car, it's covered in glycol, which is the cooling fluid that's used, that's used on these cars to run them at very, very cool temperatures, because they have to. In the turbo areas of these cars, they get up to something like 100,000 RPM and temperatures of 900 degrees C, so you can imagine that they really have to work at keeping them cool. Andrew Bartley is at the front of the car. He's one of the top men in the team, and the rest of the Peter Jackson crew are working frantically. 1 minute and 27 seconds in the pits, and that will definitely mean that they're going to drastically lose that lead that they've worked so hard for at the early laps. Fred Gibson is walking up to the side of the car to have a word with Glenn Seaton to keep him informed, because he will need to know what kind of problems the car has, and is now just mounting the drink bottle for Glenn. But this is a very long and slow stop for the Nissan 151. It's interesting that the car had no problems before they came to the pits, and I just wonder whether when they lost momentum they actually caused an overheating problem. Just as I look under the front of the car, it appears as though the fan belt has flicked off. I don't know whether that's absolutely true, but they're working frantically on it. 2 minutes and 15 seconds, and Rowe, I should imagine, has gone into the lead in car number 31, so the driver who shared with Tony Longhurst in the 1986 event now leads the Nissan Mobil 500 around the streets of Wellington. They're still working on the front of the Nissan, 2 minutes and 35 seconds down. Fred Gibson peering in the front of the car, Bo Seaton at the front of the car. He's the father of Glenn. Oh, this is drastic stuff. George Fury's disgusted. He's walked away to the back of the pit area, and look at this as the car now gushes steam out of the front of the radiator. We may return you now up to the commentators upstairs, and they can pick up the action as the leader circulates around the streets of Wellington.
Well, you know that when the mechanics have got spanners in their hands and the bonnet's open, that they've got some kind of problem, and this is a drastically slow pit stop. They've lost the lead now to Trevor Crowe. 3 minutes and 10 seconds have gone in this pit stop. We'll keep the watch on it for you. Far too long in the pits, and even if they get back out there now, they're going to have to run on such pace that it's going to be very, very difficult for them to get back to get into that lead. They're losing seconds here all the time, and it's just gone again. Trying to start the engine up to get some of the coolant working, to get the fluid circulating around the engine, but that's dreadful stuff for the Nissan Skyline team. 3 minutes and 45 seconds now. So a comfortable lead being built up all the while they're in the pits by Jim Richards and Trevor Crowe in the BMW.
It's exactly what we said before, Tony, that all it takes is just one little incident, and that's exactly what has led this Crowe and Richards' car through to the front. And of course, being a sleeper, as we said, it'll only need one pit stop. All it needs is just a fuel up, tyre change and a driver change. And at the moment, we've seen that the Fury car has been in for 4 minutes 20 seconds now, and at the moment it's still Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards out in front.
One of the problems that has not been common for the BMW is overheating. They often have tyre problems. They've had broken suspension struts. They've had broken stub axles. They've had a number of different problems over the years. But overheating has not been a common one with them. And we'd expect that the way this car appears to be running now, that they can hold on to where they are. That's one of the tyres off George Fury's car.
Tony, we can't help but make the observation that he chose to come in at exactly the right time. But looking at the pattern on that tyre, looks like he's had a wheel lock-up of some sort. So it's quite possible that that's not necessarily a tyre wear factor, but he may well have had a slight problem with his brakes.
It certainly looks like it's been flat-spotted at some stage. And a minor lock-up. Trying to get it out now. And we'll go down to Neil Crompton in the pits because it looks as though they're putting that car away.
5 minutes and 21 seconds the Nissan Skyline was in the pits. The car's been pushed to the rear of the pit area. Fred Gibson, that's a real disaster.
It's our first DNF for a long time, actually, Neil. The car threw a fan belt and overheated the engine and cooked the engine. One of the marshals told me it was spewing something out front of the bonnet. We didn't know what it was until the car come in and it's thrown a fan belt off for some reason.
I don't know whether this is a silly question, but would that have happened on perhaps the last couple of laps when George slowed down sufficiently and the car is, if you like, it's got out of rhythm? Is that a possibility?
Hard to say, really, Neil. I don't really know. Like, we were pacing ourselves and sort of doing it fairly easy. It was a matter of trying to get through to halfway on tyres and fuel. We went very close on tyres. You just saw the tyres, so just about on the canvas. But like I say, that's our first DNF for a while, so it's not too disappointing.
When a car's been running hot and hard for 2 hours like that and they slow down, that overheating tendency appears in a turbo, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, really, I suppose, and the rules here say you've got to turn it off, makes it worse for us anyway. But we were ready for that and we were looking fairly confident that way. That's just one of those things that's happened, I think, really.
Better luck next weekend at Pukekohe.
Oh, I think so. Have a go at those Jags again.
Thank you, Fred.
Actually, Mike, it's a valid point he makes that the rules of Group A touring car racing here anyway suggest that, well, don't suggest, they dictate that you must stop the engine when you stop the car for the pit stop. And for turbo cars in particular, that's a problem with overheating.
Well, he certainly has, Fred Gibson. If they wanted any changes of the rules for next year, I think Fred Gibson would be 100% in favour of leaving the engines go. Disappointing, obviously, to leave the race, throw a fan belt, overcook the engine. There's not too much you can do from there. So exit the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline. Let's put it this way, until it called in the pits, there wasn't a car on the racetrack to even lay a glove on it. In the meantime, though, Jimmy Richards in car number 31 continues to pace the field. Stephen Soper in car number 10. Sharing the Ford Sierra with him, Neville Crichton today running strongly. David Parsons in car number 11. And, of course, Alan Moffat in the Peter Brock car, rounding off the top 4 at the stage.
What a nice position to be in. We were just talking about it immediately prior to the pit stop, the disastrous one for the Nissan Skyline team, where they had the problem of losing the fan belt, overheating and out of the race. And we were just talking about this car and this driver combination of Trevor Crowe and Jimmy Richards. Two excellent drivers in a car that was sitting beautifully poised as the sleeper in the race. He really stunned a lot of people with the qualifying time yesterday, and a qualifying time that put the BMW faster by a substantial margin than the 4 other BMWs in the race.
Well, back behind Jimmy Richards, of course, the scrap for 3rd and 4th place continues. We'll pick that up for you shortly. And that is between David Parsons and obviously Alan Moffat driving Peter Brock's 05 car. There's the car running second on the road at the moment, car number 10. And that, of course, is Stephen Soper in Neville Crichton's Turbo Ford Sierra.
The order at the moment is Crowe and Richards, Crichton and Soper, Perkins and Parsons, Brock and Moffat, O'Brien and McIntyre, Harvey and Lowe, and then Holman Hana.
Just as you said that changed because Brock has now worked his way past Parsons. Alan Moffat, I mean to say, in Peter Brock's car, so he's been able to get past the outside of Parsons. The scrap we're watching now is for 2nd place outright in the race. Stephen Soper in car number 10, the Turbo Ford Sierra. Right behind him is Moff the top in the Mobil number 5 car, and then of course sitting back in probably 50 metres back behind, of course, being David Parsons, is Larry Perkins, number 11 in St Nicholas Commodore. So this is a good scrap. Up in front, Jimmy Richards continues to lead the race.
Leading the order, by the way, in the 0 to 1600cc class, Giddings and Stewart in the Nissan Sylvia, followed by Hodgkinson, Bagel, Baton, Bartley, Burke and Pascoe, and Clark and Kernow.
Little untidy that time was David Parsons coming out of the hairpin, coming up on the some of the slower cars. Moffat in 0.5, very close now to Stephen Soper coming back through the field. He's worked up to the pace, he's happy at running. Parsons, meantime, hasn't given this one away. He's closed right up behind Alan Moffat. Oh, a bit of a break-up lock from the two Commodores that time. Just ahead of them, of course, Steve Soper, lead driver for the Eggenberger Ford team in the European Touring Car Championship this year. Just look at the way the cars are dancing around over the top of the bumps. If nothing else, David, I would suspect that Alan Moffat will be only too happy today not to have the cloudburst that came his way when he took over last year.
Well, this time he's got the right tyres for the right conditions. As you know, Mike, last year he got caught out actually with dry tyres on in the rain. Now, Stephen Soper running very well in second place, but obviously Alan's picked up the pace, and I think he's now looking for a way by. And these pit stops will dictate the order at the finish, no doubt. We've had the Brock Commodore in, we've had the Neil Lowe, John Harvey car in. And talking to Jim Richards earlier, he thought that one stop would do it. John Harvey says, well, maybe one stop will do it, but we're travelling quicker than you guys, and we'll make up that deficit. So they're certainly not throwing the towel in, and they're not fazed by the black BMW of Jim Richards and Trevor Crowe.
I guess on the Richter scale of fairness, Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards deserved to win today. See that they had last year wrapped up and fell foul of a suspension problem. The Jags, of course, started off looking a big chance today. But at the moment, we've got Wyn Percy back in the pits in car number 51. Looks like a regular pit stop.
Well, the way that the hands went up from Wyn Percy then, it sounds like maybe it's all over. When the driver throws the gloves on the ground, he's usually very unhappy. And Tom Walkinshaw said he'd had the wrong tyres on at the start. Dunlop advised them about the tyre that they could get away with in this race. Obviously, the driver in that car is getting away with it too. But they thought that with the second tyre choice, the harder compound tyres of the Dunlop tyres, that they would be back in with a chance. In fact, that must be Uncle Tom back in the car with Percy out. Looked a little unhappy, as we said, when he got out. I don't suppose they planned on having two stops in such a short time.
I would think, though, Tom will be out for a record, would he not, before he leaves this afternoon? That will remind everyone that at least they got the win. Meantime, Alan Moffat in car number 05 has managed to pass Stephen Soper, so that will now move Moffat up into second behind Jimmy Richards in car number 31. And here is the race leader. Jimmy Richards in for his pit stop. Trevor Crowe ready to take over the car. We're keeping the time gap to see whether or not Moffat can go across the strike, and he does. So that should theoretically put Moffat in number 05 back in front. Whether or not he takes the others with him on the way through, no. Stephen Soper is coming in for his pit stop at this very moment. Neville Crichton will take that car over. So everything happening. Oh!
So that leaves us with Brock Moffat in first place, O'Brien and McIntyre in second place, Crowe and Richards in third, Perkins and Parsons at this stage not having registered as being out of fourth place. Very shortly, as time ticks by, they'll be giving way to Harvey and Lowe, Crichton and Soper, Holman, Hana and Walkinshaw and Percy. Well, it's a lot of hard effort to try and get those guards off the wheels. But there's the 05 Holden Commodore with Alan Moffat at the wheel, having taken over from Peter Brock. They are the race leaders. Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards in the BMW held the lead for a little while till they had to make a pit stop.
A lot more serious than wheel damage or panel damage, Tony. The front wheels had around about 3 feet of toe-in, I would suggest, and maybe some badly bent steering geometry. Dave passes at the wheel, and well, a heartbroken Larry Perkins. He certainly looked hot for this race, running really strongly in the NZ car.
And we'll go down to the pits now and see if we can get a word with David Parsons, with Brian Lawrence.
David Parsons down in the pits, the end of a very brilliant drive. What was the problem?
Just a lot of rubbish and what have you, and just slipped and just clipped the arm car by a couple inches on one side. Just beat me straight in the other side. You couldn't do anything about it.
David, from the outside, it looks panel damage. There's obviously a little bit more happening there under the mudguards.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, well, 2 flat tyres and made it very hard to steer, and I'm just sorry for all the boys in NZ, which made a great day at this, and sorry I just let the team down a little bit. You know, that's just one of those things. I can't do anything else about it, I'm afraid.
David, how's the traffic out there? Is it causing a problem?
Traffic sometimes not too bad, but generally, no, you can't complain. It was just drive error, and there's no one else to blame but the fella and myself. That's me.
Better luck next weekend at Pukekohe. Thank you, David Parsons.
Thanks very much.
That was David Parsons admitting that the only person you can blame is the driver. Of course, there are a number of hazards around this circuit, and a number of drivers have really met the wall on a number of occasions, even before the race started. It was to be expected that the attrition rate, not only through mechanical failure, but through collisions, would reduce the field substantially by the end of the day, as has been and become the tradition here. And sitting in the pits there, not especially happy with what has happened after the amount of hard work that he had done initially. Larry Perkins.
Yes, Larry's just surveying the damage, what may have been and what certainly won't be for the rest of the day.
Mike, there's been a lot of talk about the drivers and the various ages of the drivers of these cars, and quite often a lot of criticism levelled at the older brigade, the Brocks, the Moffats, the Johnsons. But what you get with these blokes is bulk experience. And when you come to a track like this, really, it's not the hairs that usually make it. It's that knowledge, that years and years of proven experience of making some of the mistakes to this, and you store them away. Like Alan Moffat's got more years than most people can remember behind all sorts of cars all around the world, and that is why he's in a position now of keeping off the walls, not a mark on the Mobil Dealer Team car, the 05 car, and Mob just picking his way through the traffic. And I suspect he's doing what Tom Walkinshaw says is a prerequisite of street racing. You have to think about 2 corners ahead. You have to remember that there was a little bit of stuff growing on the side of the circuit, which next time around might be on your line. And that is what is the real essence of a top-class endurance driver.
I take that point, David. In fact, some laps before, we noticed David Parsons out of the hairpin getting very crossed up, very sideways, very macho. But, of course, once you cut one of these things loose, you've only got concrete on one side and steel Armco on the other. You just can't bounce off and can hope to go racing. That's why this guy is up in front and leading. He mightn't be absolutely spot on as far as times of Peter Brock. I'll tell you, as I said earlier in this telecast, at the end of the race, the car won't have a mark on it, and Alan Moffat will still be circulating at the same times.
Came so closely to winning last year.
I think Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards are probably still in an excellent position there, because when O'Brien and McIntyre make their pit stop, they're going to be very lucky if they can do it as well as the Crowe-Richards pit stop. And they've already made theirs and got it underway. Brock and Moffat still have the lead, with Moffat at the wheel at the moment. And that's a gap between first and second of 22.59 seconds. Not insurmountable if they have the slightest problem with the Holden Commodore. But the Holden Dealer Team Commodores, both of them seemingly running without any problem at all. Harvey and Lowe sitting back there in 4th position. They'll be the finishers, and here is the pit stop for Charlie O'Brien and Glenn McIntyre. This is a very, very long run they've got out of this car, very economical on gas and obviously on tyres as well. Starting to slide just a little in the tail before they came in. That's O'Brien out, the taller of the two, and Glenn McIntyre in.
That's been a marvellous run from Big Charlie in the State Coal. been on the boil all day, and I tell you, hasn't been too far off the lead. Charlie with a bad run of luck in Aussie during 1986. Just the sort of form he needs to start 87 on a positive note.
Charlie O'Brien, of course, a man well known to New Zealand viewers as a Formula Pacific driver. More recently has been in the Group A cars, and that pit stop, 31.7 seconds. That's excellent timing. Better, in fact, than the Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards pit stop. So they're back out on the racetrack, and now we'll have handed over second place to Crowe and Richards, because they were 20-odd seconds ahead. They've taken 31 for the pit stop. So, tyres still just a little bit cold for that kind of caper. Crowe and Richards taking over second place. Trevor Crowe in the car at the moment.
That corner is the one that caught out Dave Parsons, the entry to Athea straight through the gate there, the NISSAN MOBIL gate. And that part of the circuit breaks up quite badly. You can see those loose stones. Watch Glenn McIntyre coping with the wild power of the 635, way out by the fence there. And nicely brought back into line. So Glenn's going to have a talk to himself now, make sure that he doesn't let that thing get too close to the Armco. Keep that position he's so hardly earned.
And without wishing to denigrate the driving ability of Glenn McIntyre, I wonder if the driver combination is anything like as close as Crowe and Richards. We know that Trevor Crowe can get out there and fairly quickly be on the same lap times or similar lap times to Jimmy Richards. But Glenn McIntyre, and that's going past putting a lap on them. Not yet. In fact, that is the second of the Charlie O'Brien stable cars, the Gold Air one, in similar colours, being run by Avon Hyde. That's a lap down. We thought it was a little early to be getting that close to the Charlie O'Brien Glenn McIntyre car, but the point we were making is that Glenn McIntyre hasn't really had the kind of experience in Group A that would make him as competitive as Charlie O'Brien. You wouldn't expect him to be able to go out there and very quickly get on the same lap times, or to be able to sustain them under pressure to the same degree. Let's go to Peter Williams now for an update of the official positions.
Nearly 2.5 hours gone, 1.5 hours to drive in the 1987 Nissan Mobil 500 in Wellington, and it's Brock and Moffat, last year's winners, in car number 05, the Mobil Holden Dealer Team Commodore. They've completed 84 laps, a lead of 47.85 seconds over Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards in the BMW, and Charlie O'Brien with Glenn McIntyre at the wheel at the moment, also in a BMW, 1 lap down in 3rd place. It's Harvey and Lowe in the second of the Holden Dealer Team Commodores, currently in 4th place, 1 lap down. Also on the same lap, Armin Hahn and Denny Holm in the first of the Jags, and in 6th place it's Tom Walkinshaw and Wyn Percy, further lap down in the second of the Jag cars. Crichton and Soper, after having an unscheduled pit stop, are back to 7th place now. Mulligan and Hyde in 8th place in the BMW. Billington and Castle hanging in there in their Commodore. And in 10th place, it's Lorrimore and Mayer. Perkins and Parsons have stopped, of course, with 77 laps completed. And then Giddings and Stewart completing the first dozen.
Competitors back there that can take over from any danger, any problem that the front runners have. Brock and Moffat are not likely to have a problem. The second Holden Dealer Team car now running up with them.
Neil Lowe, of course, will be well aware of the fact of Alan Moffat's hold on the race at this stage. And I'd be very surprised if you don't see Neil just give Alan carte blanche to have an open racetrack. It'd be the wise thing to do. They're running as a team. At the moment, of course, Moffat leading. Crowe second, O'Brien third. Harvey in 4th place on the road. So he's not going to lose anything at this stage, and obviously protect the lead by his driver, his teammate.
Just theorising for a moment here, we know that there's about a 45 to 50 second margin between the Brock Moffat car and the Trevor Crowe Jim Richards car. We believe that Trevor Crowe will not stop again, and we also know that Brock Moffat will have to stop for another load of gas and tyres. We think that there's around about a 40-second involvement in the pit stop, so really it's down to the driving difference between these two cars, the lap times between them, because there's certainly not much of an advantage there, not one that they can trade upon, and Trevor Crowe will certainly have his nose wide open, remembering that second place was where he was towards the end of last year's race, and he'd like to make that first.
I can't see any reason why he wouldn't.
Be nice if he could do it without a broken suspension strut too. Proved a rather painful experience for Longhurst last year, and once again we have the Soper Crichton Sierra back in the pits.
Left front wheel missing. That seems to be a bit of a Sierra problem also. Sometimes they hit the wall, sometimes they fall off. They don't seem to mind how they do it really, but the end result is the same. So new wheel back on that corner, going on. Isn't on the drive pegs, a bit of time while it's centralised. In the heat of battle, mechanics who normally can be very calm, cool and collected know the pressure and tension that's on the driver, and they know they have to do the best they can in the time allowed, but it's so hard to do it without nerves. So they have a problem obviously in getting the nut started. They've got a problem with the thread, maybe a little bit of an angry move with the air gun, damaged the thread as they were firing on the nut, cross-threaded it, and instantly time is being lost.
They've been in the wars today. Neville Crichton and Steve Soper thought they were being quite optimistic about just wanting to put a fresh wheel back on after they'd lost one somewhere else.
Well, I suppose, in fairness, Mike, maybe we shouldn't blame the mechanics. The car came in with the wheel off, so maybe the nut damaged the thread as the wheel fell off, and therefore made it hard to refit the new wheel.
Neville Crichton sitting in the car. Obviously not especially happy with a pit stop that has already taken them 1 minute and 25, and it's the third in the space of the last half hour.
Down here in the pits with the Neville Crichton Steve Soper Sierras, that it shed a wheel. Perhaps the nut may have not been done up correctly, but the mechanics are down here now repairing the thread on the hub, and this is the reason that that it's taking them so long to get things going. Neville Crichton's still sitting in the car, the engine's going, everything else is quite fine with it, but this is certainly proving to be a bit of a problem down here. They were enjoying pretty much a faultless run in the opening stages of the race, but this has certainly been a setback for the Crichton Soper Sunday Star Sierra.
One of the best known team chiefs down there in New Zealand, Ray Stone, just hopping in for a moment a couple of seconds ago and having a word with Steve Soper as Steve Soper is talking. There's Ray Stone in your picture. He's been around a long time in rally teams and Group A teams, a very good team manager, and he'll stay cool and calm and collected under these conditions, knowing that there's not a lot you can do. You can't run a car unless you can put the wheel on properly. Waiting for them to get back out as Neville Crichton puts the gloves back on.
We've talked many times, Tony, about the wheel retention. These cars have got what's called a centre lock wheel nut. That's the big nut that goes over the tube that's in your picture there. It goes on with terrific torque pressure, but it's one only nut. And there's no coincidence that the Holden Dealer Team, and in fact the Nissan team, the Peter Jackson Nissan team of George Fury, use 4 or 5 or 6 wheel studs of the conventional manner. Now people have said, well, why don't you throw those things away and just go back to a centre lock nut? Well, the fact is that more wheels fall off cars with centre lock wheel nuts than any other situation. So Holden Dealer Team don't lose wheels, Nissan team don't lose wheels, and this car is in the pits purely because sometimes it's not even the mechanic's fault. The wheel can be tight, but in fact the wheel nut comes undone, and it's just a fact of life.
David, we can but reiterate what we said just a little while ago, and that's that the last 2 endurance races that Jim Richards has been in, there have been problems with these centre locking single nuts, and it is absolutely crucial. In Richards' case a year or so ago now, he lost 22 minutes in the pits, and what we've just seen now with that particular Sierra, they lost 4 minutes, and now 4 minutes that you just cannot get back.
We're looking now at the leader of the 1600 to 2.5 litre class. That's the Alfa Romeo GTV6 of Gelson and French. And they, in fact, while they're running very well and leading the 1600 to 2.5 litre class, are actually being beaten by several of the 0 to 1600 cc vehicles. That's the way it is in the 1600 to 2.5. Gelson and French, Longhurst and Bryce, Schuler and McNeil, Barry and Hire, and Riley and Smith. Riley is Brett Riley and Ken Smith in the 2-litre Celica.
I think he's taken David's advice, knows that Brock has a pit stop still to go where he'll step into the car, Moffat will be in, and then we should have an absolute blinder going all the way down to the checkered flag.
Certainly it's shaping up that way for an excellent finish, knowing that Brock and Moffat need another pit stop for Brock to get back in the car and take over from Moffat. Trevor Crowe at this stage sitting on good lap times. 140 the last one, 139 before that. Most of the cars sitting around the 139, 140 mark up the front of the field at the moment. So race pace has slowed off just a little, as you'd expect in the mid stages here. A matter of getting the best out of tyres, not using too much fuel and staying away from those walls.
We'd have to be forgiven for thinking there's a certain amount of predictability about this, Tony. This is about how they looked this time last year. Brock Moffat in the lead, Trevor Crowe in the BMW in second place. And it's no accident that these cars and these drivers are in these places. They're experienced in their job, and it's not being degrading to the other Commodore drivers to say, of all the fleet Commodores, these two cars, the Brock Moffat car, the Neil Lowe, John Harvey car, are the only two that are really up there doing it. So it's the drivers and the teams, it's the combination of every little facet of preparation, skilled pit work, and thinking drivers who know that keeping off the walls is so important, but they don't go out there just telling themselves that. They put it into practice. And, well, we all have our sentimental feelings towards Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards as Kiwis, but they're going to have to work for it because those Mobil Holden Dealer Team boys won't let them get away too easily.
At the moment, it's Australians first, New Zealanders second and third, and Australians fourth. Although the fourth place of Harvey and Lowe will still claim Neil Lowe as a New Zealander, part of the Holden Dealer Team and competing from Australia with John Harvey.
I guess we could always throw the Canadian bit in for Moffat, keep it truly global. Although I think he's spent enough time in Melbourne to be regarded as an Aussie.
Depending on whether or not he's winning, I guess.
Oh, well. Traffic congestion a little heavy down through the hairpin as they make their way up to the right-hander again. But with that buffer still over Trevor Crowe, as we mentioned on a number of occasions, the pit stop, Moffat out, Brock in for the sprint to the checkered flag, will have to certainly be a well-timed one.
It's going to be an interesting pit stop, that. The gap at the moment between Brock Moffat and Crowe Richards is 57.8 seconds. So almost a minute, and certainly well within the realms of the kind of pit stops we've come to expect from the Holden Dealer Team. We'd expect them to put a full fuel load and tyres on in about 35 to 40 seconds. And 57 seconds is the gap at the moment.
Well, they started both cars in the top 10 today, and they're certainly running just as well. Moffat at the head of the field, Trevor Crowe in second, Charlie O'Brien and McIntyre in third, Neil Lowe in the second of the dealer team cars, number 3, running fourth on the track at the moment. So Moffat and Crowe on the same lap, one lap behind them. Third placed O'Brien, fourth placed Harvey, fifth placed Armin Hahn, then a lap back to Tom Walkingshaw, and problems galore for Stephen Soper and Neville Crichton.
Well, as we watch Peter Brock leading the 1987 Nissan Mobil 500, we have a man with us who, but for an overheated engine, might have been in that very place that Peter Brock is at the moment. George Fury, that must be a major disappointment to you and your team.
It is disappointing, especially it's such a small problem that caused it. We had worn out tyres and we were just about to come in for a pit stop, and the fan valve broke.
So it was a scheduled.
That very lap.
It was a scheduled pit stop.
Yeah, scheduled pit stop, and on that very lap around the back of the course, the fan valve broke, and by the time I made the pits, the temperature was 140 degrees centigrade, and you know, poor engine just couldn't handle that.
What do you attribute a broken fan belt to? Is it just like the family sedan getting a broken fan belt? Just one of those things?
Yeah, just one of those things. I mean, it hasn't happened before particularly, and I mean, you know, we've had such a magic year last year that you know, these things have to happen in any case, sooner or later.
Because really, the way the car was performing, the lead you had, and just the one pit stop during the entire race, it was almost a lay-down misère that you were going to win pretty comfortably, wasn't it?
Yeah, Nissan Skylines are very fuel efficient, and we're easily making the 2 hours with the one tank full. And so that would have been a great advantage, and I was just sitting at an easy pace waiting for the 2 hours to come up so that Glenn could take over.
And by the time you got back to the pits after breaking the fan belt around the back, the engine was just too hot. There was too much damage sustained because of the heat to repair it in time.
Yeah, I guess we've blown a sealing ring or something like that from the overheating. I haven't talked to the boy much, but you know, they go thumbs down and it's all over.
How does a driver feel when you're in a situation like that? Is it an earth-shattering experience, or do you learn to take these sort of things philosophically?
Oh no, you have to take these things philosophically. I mean, I've been rallying and racing for a number of years, and there are major disappointments along the way, and it's part of motor racing, you know. Motor racing is partly to overcome these disappointments, and we'll be back into it again next weekend and do better.
All right, George, you're not going to win this race at the moment. Your fellow Aussie last year's winner, Peter Brock, and Alan Moffat in the Holden Dealer Team Commodore have a lead of just under a minute on the BMW of Crow and Richards. The significant thing is that Crow and Richards won't be pitting again. Brock and Moffat will.
Yeah.
So therefore, who do you see as being the likely winners of this race?
The way I see it is that it's going to cost the Holden Dealer Team about 45 seconds or so. Stopping and, you know, slowing down, stopping, and then speeding up again to lap pace. And Brock will get back in the car, I suppose. And I think that he'll be able to pull at least a second a lap off Trevor Crow in any case. So if he comes out ahead of Crow and goes away at a second a lap for the last, 40 laps or 35 laps, I think he's got it in the bag.
So all things being equal, no major mechanical problems. You can see that number 05 coming home with the checkered flag again.
Yeah, I have no doubt if he stays on the track that'll be the case.
Right, you're an Australian, of course. I wonder what New Zealand commentators Tony Palmer and David Oxton think of those predictions from George Fury.
Certainly, it looks like an Australian victory at the moment. I can't see a heck of a lot going wrong with the Holden Dealer Team 05 car, and I would agree with George Fury's prediction that when Peter Brock gets back in the car is capable, and Peter Brock is capable of pulling about a second a lap if he needs to off Jim Richards. And as we said, the Holden Dealer Team, we would expect to take 40-odd seconds for a pit stop. At the moment, the lead is 55.3 seconds, so they've got 50-odd seconds to complete that lap, that pit stop, to get back out and back on the pace. And if it goes according to what we would see as the schedule at the moment, it's looking very much like an 05 Holden Dealer Team Peter Brock victory.
Not forgetting also, Tony, John Harvey, or in fact Neil Lowe driving, has now picked up 3rd place from O'Brien and McIntyre, who pulled themselves past in that during that interview. So they're running 1st and 3rd on the road. There is exactly a lap between them in race distance, and certainly Alan Moffat will be under orders. They have got communication, but they'll be under orders just to keep that sort of pace. Peter will be getting pacing ready. But we'll go over and have a look at the Jag shortly and just see what Tom is doing in the XJS AG.
Tom Walkinshaw's time for the last lap, 1:38.16, so he's back out and on good pace. And obviously chasing the leaders. He's some margin back now. He's a good lap back on the leading cars on 93 laps, and the lead car, Brock Moffat, on the 95th lap. The gap between 1st and 2nd, 53.4 seconds. That is between Alan Moffat on the track at the moment and Trevor Crow in the BMW.
Jaguar are probably not absolutely perfectly suited to this circuit, Tony. The left rear tyre, which was replaced early in the race, was as a result of wheel spin and the soft tyre compound. I asked Tom about it. He said, well, it's not a construction problem, just compound. They've gone up to a harder compound and really haven't brought back the pace. They haven't picked up the pace. Their lap times probably in line with everyone else at this time, although I'd have to believe they are, in recent laps at least, pulling back about a second or so on the Brock Moffat car. So we'll have to see what sort of fireworks that Peter Brock will throw in, but Is this the late charge for Tom Walkinshaw?
Well, you have to assume that it is a charge of some kind, although it's probably a little too late, but certainly he's picking up a second and a half a lap in the last few laps on Peter Brock.
Denny Holm, Armin Hanekamp, car 52, identical cars, although there will be some who will say that Uncle Tom always has a little bit extra in his car, a few more tricks. I know Denny thought that maybe his car wouldn't be quite as quick as the boss's, but it would appear on the stopwatch at least as if they're running pretty closely. Last lap maybe Denny got held up a bit in traffic there, a few seconds away. A feature of these tracks is that to try and keep up a lap time, to try and keep up a pace and mix it with the traffic is so hard. You have to leave a little bit of slack in the chain somewhere. If you get held up in one corner, you've got to try doubly harder on the next 2 or 3 to pull back that time lost.
Give you an indication of comparisons of times. 1:41.75 the last lap for Alan Moffat and 37.65 for Walkinshaw. That's an enormous margin to be plucking back. I doubt very much that he can maintain that kind of increase over the next few laps, because if he gets anywhere within QE, of course the pit signals will tell the Holden Dealer Team boys to pull out the stops and pull off a second or so a lap, which they no doubt can respond to very easily at this stage.
We've got the Trevor Crowe car in trouble. In fact, Trevor Crowe has stopped at the exit of Strathmore Elbow, and gone is the one chance for New Zealanders to see this car win the Nissan 500.
What wretched luck for Trevor Crowe. They had the race shot to pieces last year with Tony Longhurst. The car had suspension problems and careered off into the tyre wall. And after looking so good so early in this race, the challenge has fizzled somewhat. They were trailing Alan Moffat by 53 plus seconds, and that shortly will bring Neil Lowe up beyond the parked Crowe car and into second place, and giving the Mobil Dealer Team a set-up for a 1-2 finish.
All of which, of course, also brings the Jags a little closer to the front.
Well, Mike Raymond, you were saying if you were team manager for Mobil Holden Dealer Team, you'd be bringing in Alan Moffat at this point, knowing that there's a little bit of a drop-off in the times there. 41.23 for Alan Moffat. Tyres might be getting into a bit of trouble. So that is actually quite a deficit. I mean, if we compare the last laps, and there is a Jag with a locked wheel. Now, is he in brake trouble? Is he in tyre trouble? The pace that he's pulling, certainly we would expect to have the odd lock-up, but doesn't seem to be running amiss from that. But on the quickest laps we have recorded recently, there's some 3 to 4 seconds of difference between Brock Moffat's car and the XJS in your picture now. Big lock-up from that left front. That'll be nicely flattened.
Denny Holm, car number 52, might have square tyres on the Strathmore Group XJS Jag at this stage, but with Trevor Crowe dropping out of contention with bad luck, a little wiggle-waggle that time, so I don't think it'll be too long before we see the 52 XJS back into the pits. We've seen 2 incidents. Let's replay that for you again. Whoa. Tell you what, there wasn't much in that. Almost pointed him back into the pit area, whether he wanted to go or not, but I don't think it'll be long before we see Denny Holm back there for a change of tyres. He mightn't have required them 2 laps ago, but I think he certainly does after those 2 exciting moments.
Tyres must be really going off on that car now, Mike. What we mean in terms of going off, the rubber gets to such a temperature that it starts to blister and delaminate the tread. You saw some pictures earlier of the Walkinshaw car peeling the rubber off. And literally it feels like you're driving on squashed eggs. The cars just move around, they won't steer into the turns properly, they won't put the power down properly. They do give you a moment because they're so unpredictable. 1 minute you think you can drive into a corner at a certain speed, the next time around that speed will catch you out and put you into the arm curve.
The indications are that we're nothing like the 500 kilometres that the race would have run had it 500 kilometres come up before the 4 hours. Obviously the 4 hours is going to arrive first, and we're due for a race finish at somewhere around 5 minutes past 4. So So time is running out for anybody wanting to catch the Holden Dealer Team cars, with a 1-2 looking very likely at the moment. 1:44.16 the last lap for Alan Moffat. And I think Mike Raymond, you might be right in saying that either the tyres have gone off or Alan Moffat is due to come in and let Peter Brock go out on some new rubber.
I think you'll find that the pressure has been taken off Alan Moffat somewhat with the demise of Trevor Crowe. They might let him stay out there now just a little longer, depending on what shape the tyres are in. And please don't take me wrong when I say that they should bring Moffat in just for the sake of it, put Peter Brock back in the car. The obvious thing was to bring Moffat in at the right time to protect his lead and give Peter Brock a chance to be able to at least stay in touch with them.
Certainly that gap at the moment between the two Holden Dealer Team cars, it's in first and second, 1 minute and 39 seconds. But the gap back from second to third between the Harvey Lowe car and the O'Brien and McIntyre car, 14 seconds. So fairly comfortable in second. And here is Alan Moffat into the pits for a tyre change and to put Peter Brock back in the car for a charge to the finish.
Almost an identical situation to last year. Here comes Alan Moffat. He's done very well for the Mobil Holden Dealer Team here at the streets of Wellington this afternoon. Holding a commanding lead. Peter Brock steps back into the car.
And they've only got about 10 minutes to run, so it's looking like a fairly comfortable sort of a cruise at the moment. Peter Brock, of course, won't get in and cruise.
Crew very well drilled. They've gained a tremendous amount of expertise. Beautiful stop there by the Mobil Holden Dealer Team.
Less than 30 seconds for the stop, and of course it's my clock in my head that is confused. 10 minutes to run to 4 o'clock, and then there's an hour to run because it's a 5 o'clock finish, of course, to the race. Talking before about whether they'd get to the 4-hour duration or the 500 kilometres first. Walkinshaw back in.
Quick pit stop for Tom Walkinshaw at the moment. 0.5. Peter Brock at the wheel, leading the race from Neil Lowe in the second Dealer Team car. Third place to Charlie O'Brien. Fourth place to Armin Hanna. And then, of course, oops, a spin here.
We have Denny Halmore. We shouldn't malign him yet because we're not sure, in fact, if it's Armin Hanna, but that was the same corner which caused him a problem earlier on, just after the Dunlop Bridge. So it's an embarrassing position to be facing the wrong way on a racetrack, Tony. What do? Do you a three-point turn or maybe pray for a crane?
I think as narrow as this circuit is in places, it'll be more than a three-point turn.
Well, the obvious thing is to back the car down and try and turn it without causing any problems for the cars coming around there. We see the Golson car going through the Alpha GTV. They'll try and turn the car. That's taken a lot of the pressure off the race leaders. We'll see them next time around. Harvey and Lowe, car number 3, Neil Lowe at the wheel. Neil, of course, a New Zealander who works very closely with the Holden Dealer Team and played such a big role in Commodore success during the Spa 24-Hour Classic in '86, winners of the King's Cup. Has tasted international competition. And the good thing to come out of today's race is with the World Touring Car Championship about to start at Monza, Italy on March 22nd, the Mobil team will be mounting a full frontal attack on that championship with V8 Commodores. The final plans of Tom Walkinshaw haven't been sorted as yet. We believe he also is looking at Commodores and quite a few other cars that have been probably offered to him. We're going to see Nissan there as well, BMW, Ford Sierra with their Cosworth. And what an interesting series the world is in for with the first Tin Top World Championship. At this moment, though, Neil Lowe coming through and looks like heading into the pit area for his pit stop. Second on the road at the moment. John Harvey moving everyone back as the crew awaits Neil Lowe to arrive. And Harvey set to go and follow the boss in the sprint to the checkered flag.
And Neil Lowe, the Kiwi, brings car number 3, the Mobil Holden Dealer Team Commodore, into the pits. We've started our stopwatch. John Harvey, the veteran, 48 years of age, climbs in. Having a look on the side of the tyre here, and they're still using their Dunlop radial slick tyres. They've been experimenting with 16 and 17-inch Bridgestone and Dunlops throughout the course of the weekend, and this so far looks to be a very comfortable stop. You can see them working away at the front right-hand side. Arms in the air, the crew signify that the tyre change has been well effected. The fuel guys are now ready. 2 tunes have gone in. Mick Webb, the manager at the front, indicating that they should fire it up. John Harvey's been belted down tight, and the watch stops at a time of 37.5 seconds. A good stop from the dealer team.
Thank you, Neil Crompton from the pits, as Peter Brock in 05 coming up behind the Golson Alpha GTV. So they're looking good at this stage for a 1-2 finish to the Nissan Mobil 500 from Wellington.
That's an excellent stop, which will have lost them 1 place, but one that they can hopefully pluck back on O'Brien and McIntyre in the BMW. Looking at the Jaguar pits, obviously waiting to see if the Armand Hana, Denny Holm can make it back to the pits. Seemed to be a tyre problem or a brake problem. Getting very sideways at a number of points on the circuit, and eventually getting so sideways it pointed the other way, which is where it has been parked. So the pits can wait and wait. I don't think that car's going anywhere in the meantime. Parked alongside the Bajan-Balkett Skyline.
It looks a bit crouched on the left-hand side there, Tony, whether it's down in the left front or the left rear. But certainly it's not going anywhere, so the parking space is getting quite full there. We wouldn't want to have too many more around there.
We'll see if we can get a word with the Tom Walkinshaw crew shortly. See if they have any more clues as to what was wrong. We imagine that Armand Hana or Denny Holm on the long walk back to the pits to tell them if they haven't already by radio telephone.
There's Ian Gamble from Strathmore Motorsport, I think, explaining to Andy Morrison not to wait for the arrival of the 52 Jag. It might be after the race and on a wrecker's hook, because the car is out of contention. There's Tom Walkinshaw has walked in for to find out what has happened there as well. Looking hot and sweaty after coming back onto the racetrack. There's the cool suit that we spoke about. Tell you what, you wouldn't want to declare Tom on with physique like that in a barroom brawl.
Certainly the cooling suit would appear to have been necessary out there for Tom Walkinshaw. He's still really fairly hot and sweaty. Difficult for these drivers, particularly on a warm day like today, with a flame-proof set of overalls and a balaclava and a helmet over the top. There's not a lot of space for cooling, and hence the advent of the cooling suits, which have a cooling liquid circulating around them under pressure, and the ice box, which keeps it all cool, can be changed at a pit stop.
There's Tom having a little look over his shoulder, and there's Denny, who's arrived back. Not saying too much.
I noticed Denny the other day at Pukekohe in testing was very sceptical about the use of the cooling suits, saying, what are they, sissies these days? But I'm sure if he thought there was some advantage in there, he'd bolt one on as well. Wyn Percy still out in the first of the Jaguar team cars from Tom Walkinshaw Racing.
Just one little point, Tony, perhaps with Denny Holm and his belief perhaps that the cool sets aren't really such a good idea. Perhaps Denny has got a little bit used to living at Lake Rotowedi instead of Wellington. Perhaps he's got a little bit used to a different climate. Doesn't realise that perhaps Wellington can turn on days like this.
Doesn't seem to mind the temperature. The Walkinshaw Percy Jag with Wyn Percy in it at the moment, up to 4th place. So the order is Brock Moffat, O'Brien McIntyre, Harvey Lowe, and then Walkinshaw Percy. Behind them, Crichton and Soper, who are falling way behind because of the number of pit stops they've had, unscheduled and scheduled. Here is the Crichton Soper Sierra, still hanging tenuously to 5th place, immediately ahead of the Holman Hana car on the latest printout, but that's now history as that car is out. Billington and Castle have taken over that position in the Holden Commodore.
I climbed in after Denny, but then the left rear tire started to go off, and I asked my pit to come in, but just when I asked, Tom was in, so I couldn't come in, and they told me to stay out one more lap. And then when I just went on the bridge, the left rear tire went flat, and I went straight on into the Armco. So that's it.
It's been one of those weeks for you. You had problems up in Pukekohe as well.
Yeah, up there my left front tire went flat, so it's not my tire day, I think.
Okay, better luck next weekend. It's certainly been a week of flat tyres for the German driver, Armin Hahner.
Armin Hahner, fairly philosophical, as any professional racing driver would be. There's not a lot you can do about that. He asked to come in, but his crew said, sorry, we're already busy with the boss, Uncle Tom, and so stay out for another lap. That proved to be his undoing. As the left rear went flat, he went straight ahead. The car is parked, as you can see.
Was similarly placed in third, as I recall, David Oxton. Then all of a sudden they lost an engine down at the hairpin, and Harv and Lowe's race was over there.
Let's go down to the pits and see if we can get a word with Trevor Crowe, who's just hopped out of the car to give it back to Jimmy Richards and see how their team is run.
Well, of course, Trevor Crowe was the driver who was pushing the dealer team along quite nicely, but unfortunately that challenge has fizzled. Trevor, what happened?
We're not sure. We think it's the clutch. It could be half shaft universal. It's just lost all drive. Won't go in any of the gears. I've tried them all. It just happened quite suddenly and it had no warning at all. The car really didn't feel good before that. You know, it was running perfectly. We still had a lot of brakes, and by just conserving the tyres with full tanks, waiting for a bit of a burst later on once the petrol level goes down, you can give it a bit more. So just cruising along. But it's one of those things. Second year in a row.
You're the unluckiest driver of the last two Nissan Mobil 500s, recalling last year when you and Tony pushed the leaders along, and in fact it was the same team that you were pushing, and then again you get 3/4 of the way this year and ditch it at the last moment.
Yeah, well, it's disappointing, but it is motor racing. I know that's an old phrase, but it's quite right. You've really got to be there at the finish, and it's been a bit of a problem with the BMWs, the clutches. You know, Jim lost one at Adelaide in a good position, and it's just something that seems to go on them, but you know, we've enjoyed our weekend, and we'll look forward to next week.
Okay, you gave it your best shot. Better luck next weekend at Pukekohe. Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards did well in the Archibald BMW. We couldn't quite get it together in the end.
One of the nice guys of motor racing, Trevor Crowe from Christchurch. Been around in various forms of it, in saloon car racing, in sports sedan racing, and rallying. He's done a bit of everything. Very good peddler. Hard luck for him 2 years in a row to have that kind of misfortune. Brock's lead at the moment, by the way, is 1 minute and 48 seconds over Glenn McIntyre in the BMW, and only 14 seconds now separating that BMW with the second Holden Dealer Team car of John Harvey. John Harvey and Neil Lowe, the team. Harvey in the car at the moment, and if we can get a look at that second car, the number 3 car, we'll see just how quickly he can close on Glenn McIntyre, because I don't imagine there'll be too many laps at the current rate before he's up there, and we have a Holden Dealer Team 1-2.
Peter Brock and John Harvey running the VK model Commodores. In fact, this will be one of the last races for this model car. The VL has just recently been released in Australia, a fantastic new Commodore, and Peters just can't wait to get home and get it screwed together for the World Touring Car Championship and the Australian Touring Car Championship. Back in the picture there was Tony Longhurst having a bit of trouble negotiating one of the turns. But as we've said, the VK model Commodore in your picture now sold, and sold and got the money, we understand. We don't know who, and a lucky Australian will be in that car next year, or this year in fact. And as we said, HDT and in fact all the other leading teams looking forward to getting their hands on the new VL model V8 and in readiness for one big season of motor racing in Australia.
I think as far as Tom Walkinshaw is concerned today, obviously it'd have been nice to have had a win for the Jags, but looking ahead to the World Touring Car title, you have to make the choice between a Nissan and a Holden Commodore. You'd really be turned around, David.
Well, Tom is playing his cards really close to his chest. We understand that he's actually taken delivery of a new Holden Commodore, a Group A model car developed jointly really by Holden Dealer Team and GMH in Australia for racing Group A worldwide. So we've just got a little bit of an update here from Tony Palmer on the race positions and places.
That gap between second and third now only 10 seconds and being plucked back. If you have a look at the times being read out here, in fact, John Harvey is on times about a second a lap faster than Peter Brock at the moment in the second Holden Dealer Team car. He's trying for that 1-2, obviously, for Holden. He knows he can pick up Glenn McIntyre, given the time. The gap, as we said, is shortened to 10 seconds now and he's on lap times of 140, high 140s. So John Harvey closing very, very quickly. This is John Harvey, and he's just plucking back about a second a lap, sometimes a little more, on Glenn McIntyre. We have a look at McIntyre shortly. We'll see just how far that gap is, and if we follow John Harvey, no doubt we'll get to McIntyre in time.
It's not too far ahead now. John Harvey, car number 3, the second of the Mobil Holden Dealer Team V8 Commodores, gaining all the time on Glenn McIntyre in the State Coal BMW, car number 7, the orange BMW. You'll be able to see the gap shortly between the two cars as we pick up on Harvey in number 3 going through onto the start finishing straight. And here he comes down the long straight here at Wellington into the right-hand kink and then towards the hairpin. This is where Harvey last year lost an engine in the closing stages of the race. There was oil and water and just about everything else there, and Harvey just climbed out of the car and sat in the cool for a while. Well, today he's gaining on second place Glenn McIntyre and looking good as we wind down into the final 35 minutes of the event.
And in this last 40 minutes or so, the quickest times being posted at the moment on lap after lap from Tom Walkinshaw and Wyn Percy's entry, with Wyn Percy in the wheel at the moment. 139.24 the last lap, 139.27 the lap before it.
There's Harvey. You'll be able to see the gap now between Glenn McIntyre and John Harvey. Harvey definitely on the move in the number 3 car, closing all the time.
Walkinshaw certainly making a charge, albeit a little bit late, but he's the fastest man on the circuit at the moment. And Tom Walkinshaw, just as we speak, in fact, Wyn Percy in the Walkinshaw-Percy car has just posted a 138.56, so they've found some extra speed from somewhere too in the last couple of minutes.
It's really academic though, Tony. We've got people who are trying to do a race and get to the finish and preserve their cars, and then we've got Tom saying, well, go for it, Wyn, go and have a bit of a drive, go and boot the old Jag along and show them what these cars are capable of. But Harvey's the one that's really got to make the ground now. He's on schedule to get through to second place and make the 1-2 that looks inevitable. But don't discount Glenn McIntyre. Let's say he's done a pretty good job of taking over the car from Charlie O'Brien with a 6.35, and Kiwi hopes are pinned on him.
There's the gap. Number 7, McIntyre, Harvey closing down to the hairpin yet again. We're able to watch them from that chopper view along the waterfront, and all the cards seem now to be falling into place for John Harvey. They mightn't have gone that way last year, but here's McIntyre certainly under a little bit of pressure, and Harvey gaining as they come through the downtown area.
And Harvey has actually picked up the pace even more, a 139.88 after a couple of 140s and 141s. So obviously having seen the gap has given him some sort of incentive to pick up the pace just slightly. Now that he's got Glenn McIntyre in sight, he knows it won't be too long. Must be very hard for a driver driving 2 team instructions and particular lap times when he sees somebody in front of him that he knows is the only obstacle between a 1-2 finish and a 1-3 finish. Very shortly we'll try and get a word with the Charlie O'Brien Glenn McIntyre team, hopefully with Charlie O'Brien, see how they feel about the fact that it seems inevitable that John Harvey is going to get past them. Harvey has just turned in another lap of 139.
The temptation must be for Glenn to really go for it, but third place wouldn't be a disgrace. In fact, he would be very proud of that place if he dropped back to third place, and remembering he's still second and trying hard. But the temptation must be to get sucked in, and that's when those little incidents happen, those wheel-banging incidents, those wall-banging incidents, and I bet Charlie's got his fingers crossed to say, OK, Glenn, you've got the might of the HDT chasing you, just keep your head and do what you can.
The man that's managing the affairs of the McIntyre O'Brien team is Richard Light, putting Charlie's vanished somewhere for a casual spot of lunch, but we'll talk to Richard. Richard, how's things going at the moment?
Going great, Neil. So long as the guys Glenn can just keep the car going, like others, the Jags are catching us pretty quick, but if they just keep reliable times, keep them going, so long as we're there at the end, that's all that counts.
Have you had any contact with Glenn? Does he know that Harvey is catching him very quickly?
Yeah, we've been putting splits out, but I know Glenn will be doing his best. Can't ask more than that.
Now, you're not making another stop?
No, we'll be going straight through to the end.
Condition of the tyres on the car, are they in good shape to take him through to the end?
Yep, no problem. Glenn drives pretty careful, so there shouldn't be any problem with tyres either.
Okay, Richard, we'll leave you to it. So the State Coal BMW figuring very well and still in second place in the Nissan Mobil 500.
Not for long, I don't think, because John Harvey continues to pick up the pace, and here he is, right on the tail now of Glenn McIntyre and the State Coal BMW 635 as they come down beneath the Foster's Lager Bridge and back onto the wharf area.
It's pretty much a foregone conclusion that Harvey will get onto McIntyre. Ran about half an hour to go, and I think Glenn McIntyre will just be pretty happy to bring that car home in third. He's a very, very good sportsman. I don't think you'll see any blocking or anything unnecessarily going on here on this very interesting Wellington Harbourside Street circuit. I think you'll find McIntyre very much an obliging man. There's Harvey right on the back.
Once again, we watch that great scrap between John Harvey and, of course, Glenn McIntyre. And here's Harvey down on the inside. They race it out door handle to door handle, and Harvey comes from behind and now picks up second spot in the Nissan Mobil 500. Peter Brock, the race leader, teammate Harvey into second, and Glenn McIntyre and the State Coal BMW now placed third. Things are looking good for the Holden Dealer Team.
Well, the Holden Dealer Team with Neil Lowe, John Harvey's co-driver, looking at his watch, wondering just how long they've got to keep this car reliable. It has been reliable right through. Neil Lowe with a smile on his face, knowing that the Holden Dealer Team are now in a 1-2 situation without a mark on either car. Absolutely immaculate still, and testimony to the talent of the drivers that they have had here. John Harvey and Neil Lowe in this car, and Alan Moffat and Peter Brock in the 05, the number 1 Dealer Team car.
John Harvey's last lap, 1 minute 39.50, compared with the Walkinshaw Percy Jaguar of 1:39.85. These two clearly the fastest on the circuit by about 8 or 9 tenths. This is John Harvey on the right, and Glenn McIntyre in the State Coal BMW on the left of your screen as Harvey uses the power of the 5-litre carburetor engine V8 Commodore to put the Wellington driver back from second to third position in the closing stages of today's Nissan Mobil 500 here at Wellington.
That's just how the Holden Dealer Team 1-2 position on the circuit happened, as John Harvey had been catching Glenn McIntyre in second place for the last 7 or 8 laps, plucking a second and a half a lap off him, gaining very, very quickly, and got past, so that we now have the Holden Dealer Team 1-2 situation. Let's go down to Neil Cromwell in the pits and have a word with the Holden Dealer Team.
A lot of pressure on this man here at the moment, Neil Lowe from New Zealand, of course one of the team's engineers. At the moment the pressure's really on.
Yes, it is. Now's the time that you think, let's hope this part stays together and that part stays together, but I'd say we're looking okay. The car, when I got out, was running perfectly. I was just spoken with Alan, and his car was the same.
Still an early prediction, but the possibility now of a Mobil 1-2.
Yes, it is an early prediction. We've got half an hour to go. Motor racing's funny. Anything can happen with 1 lap to go.
You and Slug have been doing a pretty good job of coming second. Of course, you picked up second in the James Hardy 1000. You just need to get that little bit more.
Yes, well, actually, this isn't going according to plan. We told Peter that we wanted to win this one, and he could win next week's. But we'll take this if we can have it.
Thinking on about next week, of course, you and John were the winners there last year in the second round of the Nissan Mobil. You're confident now that your point score will be good with a second place here today?
Well, obviously, this is a good start to the series. The Jaguars, I think, will be very, very quick up in Pukekohe because of the long straights. But we've picked up a lot of horsepower in development now in these cars, and it's starting to show up here. I think we'll be pretty good at Pukekohe.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
So Neil Lowe with his fingers crossed, hopefully for a second place in the Nissan Mobil 500.
Oh, David Oxton, I wonder how much the relaxed state of the Holden Dealer Team drivers has to do with the back manipulations they've been getting in the team tent. I noticed there were several other drivers actually lining up to get it as well.
That's right, Tony. And one of the special guests of the Holden Dealer Team this weekend is no less than Chuck Chapman. He's virtually the Prime Minister of General Motors Australia. And he just dropped in for the weekend to take in the Melbourne Cup, but in fact the Wellington Cup. And now here he is in Wellington for this race.
And I think we've had a major accident on the bridge. We have one car that's stranded in the centre of the bridge.
In fact, the track could actually be nearly blocked.
They're pushing the
No,
car
they're going through.
back and off to the left. Did I detect a little BMW?
Looks like the Longhurst Bryce car is in trouble. In fact, that's Bill Bryce getting out of the car. That
Jim
car's
Clark.
been in a little bit of trouble all weekend. In fact, Mike, it's been maligned by other drivers as being the cause of a few problems, and it's actually had a few scrapes and bangs. Now it's totally scraped and parked in the Armco along with a few others.
That's bad luck indeed. But at least those drivers involved could walk away. There's a lot of repair work to be done on cars, obviously, but they've been able to manage now to push them out of the way.
Now that's the car of Jim Clark and Alan Curnow, the Ford Escort RSI 1600. That seems to have been in the midst of that ding, along with the BMW 325i of Longhurst and Bryce.
You could almost open a Prestige car sales there, Tony. You'd have quite a lot of floor plan as well.
Certainly a fairly good selection in there at the moment, isn't there?
A few of your viewers, you Ford fans and you Dick Johnson fans must be wondering where on earth is Dick in the bright green Ford Mustang. Well, we lost him yesterday, just at about the left of your picture here in the Armco. He got caught up with an errant BMW and destroyed the lovely green Mustang that he's campaigned for the last couple of years. So there's an affectionate word that Grant Steers is putting on the board for John Harvey. They call him Slug, but believe me, he's no slug. He's just inherited that title on a friendly basis over the years through the team. So there's the positions as Grant Steers is showing to the team. 05 Peter Brock, Slug being John Harvey in second place, and Charlie O'Brien, Glenn McIntyre in third place.
There's Glenn McIntyre going through at the moment as we follow Peter Brock onto the start-finishing straight, going across the straight. And Brocky doing it very comfortably, acknowledges the signal. And he at this stage is still very well clear and increasing his lead all the time. Second place being held down by John Harvey, as you're well aware, and third place to Charlie O'Brien in the state car, or Glenn McIntyre, I should say, in Charlie O'Brien's car.
I make it less than half an hour to go, Mike, and really all that's required now is some concentration from the Holden Dealer Team. They can't afford to relax too much. Peter Brock sitting on a fairly slow time in that last lap because of the accident, as everybody else did as well. But if he can sit on 140, 141, that'll do fine till the end of the race. With half an hour remaining, they're not going to make the 500 kilometres, obviously. It's going to be a 4-hour race because it was 500 or 4 hours, whichever came first. The order at the moment: Peter Brock, John Harvey, Glenn McIntyre, Tom Walkinshaw, Wyn Percy, in fact, driving the car at the moment, and Steve Soper.
Well, Chuck Chapman of General Motors, as David mentioned earlier, will be delighted with the start to 1987 for his beloved V8 Commodores. Peter Brock has always been on the pace here at Wellington. He, of course, won last year with Alan Moffat, and they went on to Europe to do big things, impress a lot of people about the competitiveness of the V8 Aussie Commodore. And they're starting 1987 even better with a 1-2 setup for the sprint of the checkered flag. There's Harvey and Lowe, their car going through. And Tom Walkinshaw, of course, who is his car, number 51, Win Percy at the wheel. And there's Win in car number 51 coming back through the field, still down a couple of laps on the leaders. But the Win is obviously trying to get fastest time in the race, so that everyone will remember that they wound up with a record at the end of the day for the 1987 NISSAN MOBIL 500 in the Jags Swan Song.
And talking of the times that they're doing, Mike, it's amazing that he's still able to tool around. Win Percy, 1:38.86 for the last lap, and everybody else is slower than the 1:40s. So obviously Tom Walkinshaw has said to Win Percy when he sent him out, go out and see what you can do with it and see what places you can pick up. They're only one lap down now on the, 2 laps down on the Brock Moffat Commodore. They're on 129 laps, 127 for the Harvey Lowe car, and 127 each for the O'Brien McIntyre BMW and the Walkinshaw Percy Jag.
Well, here comes Win Percy down on the inside of Glenn McIntyre, and charging back through the field, running very, very quickly indeed. The problems that beset them early in the day took care of their top 3 finish. However, not to be deterred, the team under Andy Morrison have done a marvellous job. And here they come, back through the field.
Well, Win Percy now has moved up into 3rd position in the Jaguar. He's put Glenn McIntyre back into 4th.
And there's only 7 seconds separating them.
He's making a big charge, this man. Oh, getting a little bit sideways there under brakes, just coming over one of the numerous bumps in this Wellington street circuit, but he's really making a run for it this time. Glenn McIntyre gave him sufficient room.
Well, he's pulling about 2 seconds a lap on the Holden Dealer Team cars at this moment, Tony.
Let's have a look at the passing manoeuvre as Win Percy down the outside of O'Brien.
And that is 3rd place for Win Percy in the Walkinshaw Percy Jaguar after the problems that they've had. An excellent performance, and now sitting just 7 seconds behind John Harvey, who's in 2nd place.
I've done a little contra deal with Tom Walkinshaw. I've been providing times to the team, and now Tom's agreed to talk in the closing stages of the race. And Tom, it's been a great charge from behind from you.
Yeah, well, that's what we planned to do, you know. We thought we'd take it easy the first half of the race and go in the second. Unfortunately, we got 3 punctures, and so we've had a couple of unscheduled pit stops, and that sort of screwed up the master plan. But, well, we're giving it all we've got at the moment. Wynn's doing a good job.
So you think there's a realistic chance now for 2nd place?
Yeah, we're about 6 seconds behind the 2nd place car, so he's going for it.
Okay, we'll let you get back to it. Thank you, Tom. Tom Walkinshaw with the XJS Jaguar V12.
And just as Neil was talking to Tom Walkinshaw, where he was looking at a 6-second gap, that's actually narrowed now to 3.9 seconds. So Walkinshaw closing very quickly indeed on John Harvey. Walkinshaw in the pits, as we saw, Win Percy at the wheel of the car. Win Percy capable of the same lap times as Tom Walkinshaw. A very experienced, very talented, and a very tidy driver, Win Percy.
Well, the Mobil 1-2 is very much under threat at the moment. This is the gap. There's the 2nd place Commodore, and the big cat lurking right in behind it, stalking its prey. Through the left-hander, coming back onto the waterfront once again.
Let's see now what John Harvey has left to respond. No doubt the pits will have told him what the gap is. Has John Harvey got anything left to pull out to retain a Holden Dealer Team 1-2 finish? As Win Percy closes right on his tail.
Exciting scrap now for 2nd place in the NISSAN MOBIL 500 as they come across the bridge. Win Percy in car number 51, the XJS Jaguar, and John Harvey at the wheel of the Holden Dealer Team number 3 car. A touch of wheels there as they come down towards the right-hand kink, down into the hairpin corner. There's Tom Walkinshaw and Andy Morrison. Harvey, though, still hangs on, though, as Win Percy applies a lot of pressure. We'll get the acceleration out of here. Harvey closes the gap. They come up on a slower Alpha as they head up into the top bend. Up and balk 2.
Nice little gap there gained by Harvey, but no. The little car, the Alpha one out of the way. And a turn of first wave from John. But he's got it. Can he hold it down the straight here? I doubt that the XJS will hook top gear and go flying by.
Let's hope the brakes hold up for Win Percy, and they have, and he's passed it into second place.
Magnificent effort. Magnificent drive from Win Percy as they come out of the bend. And Percy now accelerating away from John Harvey in car number 3. The Jags might have had problems early in the race, but goodness me, hasn't Win Percy come back through the field in car number 51.
Just having a look again, it's Win Percy closed on John Harvey. Harvey a little later after this. Just have a look. I think they actually touched.
They do
Win
touch,
Percy
Tony.
just closing on behind him. A little bit of a touch just coming up here. We nudge. Very, very close indeed. Win Percy applying the pressure to John Harvey. And then they got onto the straight, and the straight line speed of the Jaguar, the injected V12 of 500 horsepower, just showing the V8 Holden the way. The end of the straight, takes the line into the left-hander, and that's second place, and that puts pay to the 1-2 finish for the Holden Dealer Team, and Tom Walkinshaw must be a pleased man now. That's an amazing drive back, isn't it?
Terrific charge back through the field. Andy Morrison is happy too. They've been able to resurrect something out of this. Now, will Peter Brock in 05 be able to run trouble 3 to the checkered flag?
You won't get much more than a smile out of Tom Walkinshaw unless he's in the lead. I think his face varies between a grimace and a smirk, and he really only looks elated when he's up in that position number 1.
Well, the gap between first and second, just in case you're wondering if the Jag can catch the Holden, is in fact about 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So not a lot of chance of that. Peter Brock looking very much like the winner of the race at the moment.
They need a cat with very big claws if he's going to come back from nowhere. 2 minutes plus with about 10 minutes remaining to the finish of the 1987 edition of the Nissan Mobil 500 here from Wellington. There's race leader Peter Brock, car number 05.
Well, GM fans, I think you better get along to the TAB with your tow tickets, because it's certainly looking good.
Uh-oh.
The big cat's in trouble. Win Percy's slowing, very, very slow. Is he going to park behind Trevor Crowe in the dead car park?
Waving his hands off the wheel. There's obviously a problem there. I think that the dream come true is on its way back again for the 05 and number 3 Mobil Holden cars. This is Win Percy and the Jaguar, who's had such a tremendous run back up through the field. Was up into second. Sorry guys, it's all over for the English fans. And what a very sad day here for Jaguar.
There's the Harvey low car number 3. It has gone back into second place. How things do change in a motor race with about 10 minutes remaining. Tom can't believe it.
I wonder if John Harvey knew something. I wonder if he's psychic.
Well, John was going as quick as I think he could go in the car.
We keep saying it, but it's again that experience thing. John Harvey could have been sucked into going that little bit hard, hit a wall, but there we go. The XJS actually sounds a little bit ropey in that shot we got there, Mike, and it's not going anywhere today. The big cat will have to park.
Well, a little of the purr has gone out of the cat. Car number 51. Yeah, sounding decidedly off colour.
Sounds like someone's got a bucket full of bolts and they're just shaking them around up front, man.
It's probably what the engine's like inside.
So Tom Walkinshaw and Andy Morrison.
Well, as you can well see, Win Percy is coming to the pits in the Jaguar XJS. I was about to have a word with Andy Morrison, but as you can well imagine, he's now a busy man. I was going to ask him whether or not he had a hint of the problem. He whispered something to Tom Walkinshaw. I don't know what it was, but I suspect it's something to do with driveline from what I heard. You can see the car now limping in. It's taken some 20 seconds just to come down here. And even around us now, we can hear the applause of the crowd for what has been a terrific drive from Win Percy. Tom Walkinshaw in the side of the car gives Win a pat. No real hint of what the problem is. Andy's standing around at the front of the car. He's not too busy now. I'll excuse myself in front of camera. Andy, any idea what happened?
It looks as if the axle's gone. That's the way it goes.
One of those things. You gave it your best shot. It was a great performance.
Well, 8 minutes to go, and there you go.
Bad luck for the Jaguar XJS out of the Nissan Mobil 500.
Oh, it's a shame for the big cats. They came here for the swan song. They were certainly the crowd's favourites. They were being picked every which way by almost every punter around the circuit. I guess the more experienced pickers were looking towards the Holden Dealer Team for their consistency and for the way the Holden Commodore can handle a street circuit like this, as we saw last year. And now, once again, we have the Holden Dealer Team in 1 and 2 positions.
2 minutes, 11 seconds now between Peter Brock, Alan Moffat, the leading car, then John Harvey and Neil Lowe. 16 seconds behind him, the third-placed State Coal BMW, driven by Queensland's Charlie O'Brien and Glenn McIntyre from Wellington.
And in spite of the lead that Peter Brock has got on the field, he's still turning in a time around about a second and a half faster than the field. So he's not slacking off the pace. And I suspect, Tony, that's because if he gives it away too much and tries to coast, that's when the problems start happening. You lose concentration. So Brocky's going to keep hammering away, keep that mind operating at 100% intensity, and make sure that he just keeps sharp, make sure he keeps off those wall edges.
Certainly Peter Brock seems to be able to concentrate better when he is actually on a race pace, rather than slacking off, as many would advise him to do, I'm sure, having the lead and the margin that he has of 2 minutes and 11 seconds. But there he is, turning in a 1:39 and now a 1:41. Not a lot left to say about Peter Brock. Peter Perfect, as they call him. He had fallen from grace just a little, certainly with the Australian public in recent months, after his somewhat unsuccessful foray into the European Touring Car Champs, where for the first time in many years, Alan Grice looked as though he was a more successful campaigner. But certainly Peter Brock getting back some of the mana that he had years ago.
The point to remember here, Tony, is that during the European campaign, Peter was using the Bridgestone tyre under contract to Bridgestone in Japan, and they find it a little bit hard to develop the tyre always up to the pace and the requirements of the European tracks. Down here, Russell Stuckey from Dunlop in Australia has come together with a Japanese Dunlop tyre, which has proved the perfect recipe for these HDT cars. And really, it's not a tyre advantage, but when Brocky gets together with a good chassis like he's got and a good engine combination, perfect teamwork, and puts that all together with good rubber, then you've got a combination which is pretty hard to beat for anyone.
I would certainly agree with you, David. And he's a man in form who can tool a car. There's Neil Lowe, and looks like Alan Moffat just resting, waiting for another 5 minutes, and then perhaps accepting the trophy for the second year in a row with his team boss, Peter Brock. There's the Harvey Lowe car. John Harvey at the wheel, goes past the graveyard bridge down there.
At this very same point of the race last year, we had Alan Moffat up in the commentary box, in fact, talking in very relaxed fashion about Peter Brock and how well the car was going and how well the team had gone.
Just to count back to the number of cars that are on the circuit, there's 15 remaining at this stage of the game. Certainly a very, very high attrition rate.
15 finishes looking like at the moment from 37 odd starters. They did have 46 entries in the first place. They were going to qualify and make 43 start. But as it happened, they didn't need to do that. There was enough attrition before the race even started that they didn't have an oversized field.
Now, I'm not quite sure whether it really requires 40 plus starters here, though, just the same, because most of the damage seems to be done in the early days of qualifying, or the early hours of qualifying, I should say. There's not days involved here with practice for the street meet.
Of course, all the drivers here will have got a great amount of experience tucked away for the what will be round 10 of the World Touring Car Championship at Labour Weekend here on the streets of Wellington, and that's the one that the world focus attention will be on. Certainly the Holden Dealer Team have got some good experience gained. A bit of a hand signal to the boys just to tell them everything's fine.
Well, it'd be intriguing if Tom Walkinshaw decides to go racing with Commodores in the World Championship, and we'll have a real Commodore battle on our hands on the Wellington street.
Well, he's made a couple of secret visits to Melbourne in the last couple of months. I don't really think he was there to greet the Tourist Authority. I think it might have been discussions with General Motors and their product that's available for international Group A touring car racing. And Tom, of course, has an absolute stunner of a team, as we've seen with his drivers, Wyn Percy, a gentleman, Armin Hana, a Charger, of course, Denny Holm filling in there as well from race to race, and Jeff Allen back in the UK. So Tom's got any number of talented drivers to choose from, no matter what the mark they decide to race.
Despite the huge battles that have gone on over the 4 hours there at Wellington, Brock's car is relatively unscathed. It's got some rubber marks down the left-hand side doors, but apart from that, it's in pretty good shape.
A quick technical rundown on the car in your picture. It weighs around about 1,250 kilograms in that form. It has a 4.9-litre V8 engine developing just over 400 horsepower. The engine builders are a bit cagey about giving accurate figures because it's a sort of, well, an in-house thing. They don't like to let too many people know exactly what they've got. We do know that HDT have developed some new camshaft and valve work over the Christmas period. They were pretty confident. So there's a sign, Form 1-2. Yes, that's Grant just giving him a little bit of a wave. Was that a wave up or a wave down? However, it's a slow down just to maybe plan that stage finish that the HDT is so famous for. They love to get those pictures across the line with arms in the air and showing how they do it well.
Under the Foster's Bridge.
Peter's been running so strongly, though, I think he's going to have to almost dab the brakes and park down there somewhere to wait for to John Harvey. But there's John Harvey going through in car number 3, currently 3rd on the road, passes the start-finishing line and heads down to the hairpin corner. A great and very favourable situation to be in for a team manager to just ask the lead driver if he could back off a little and make things a little more interesting for the finish.
Certainly reeks of confidence, doesn't it?
Certainly does. You wouldn't want to go that slow, David. You'd foul the plugs up and lose the race.
Let's see just how they do it as Glenn McIntyre still driving around, obviously with wearing tyres, getting a little tail happy in places there, and obviously getting a little tired as well. A great drive from that team of Glenn McIntyre and Charlie O'Brien in a car that is not considered to be as competitive as the Commodores or the Jags around here. Certainly Trevor Crowe and Jimmy Richards made a good effort in their BMW, and here at least we have one of the 5 BMWs finishing in the top 5.
He's driven very well, Glenn McIntyre. He can just keep it on the road at the moment without becoming too exuberant. He'll reward Charlie O'Brien with a fine 3rd placing. Letting Brock know. Brock has acknowledged, so he's going to back it off and get ready and set up for a form finish. It'll take a little of the edge off the concentration for the moment because he'll be looking in the mirror to see how quickly Harvey is gaining.
He has been in the position, Mike, as we know, of going around the last lap of Bathurst, basically in 3rd gear, waving to the crowd. And when we asked him about that, he said, no, I was just cupping air, to be honest. I was quite hot. I just wanted some air in the cockpit.
So Peter Brock coasting at this stage, waiting for his teammate John Harvey to catch up. These two with a long association in the Holden Dealer Team.
Won't be too long because Harvey going into the hairpin turn now. Brock is probably, well, here's Peter Brock at the moment, the end of the street. You'll notice Harvey coming up within a matter of maybe about 8 or 9 seconds, and he will gain all the time. There's Harvey. Should take them another lap or so. So that'll give you an indication of the break that Brock had over the field, and in particular over John Harvey. Nice way to start the year for the Mobil Holden Dealer Team. And as I said earlier, in terms of commercial sponsorship, a bonus weekend for the sponsors of the NISSAN MOBIL 500. Brock's going to get up and win a 1-2 for Mobil. And of course the pole sitter was George Fury for Nissan. And of course he led the race until his pit stop. So they've shared the honours rather evenly today.
There's the 05 car, Peter Brock, just cruising around. He has completed 139 laps at this stage. By the way, 500 kilometres would have been 156 laps, just over. So it's going to finish on the 4-hour mark, not the 500 kilometre mark. 139 laps for Peter Brock completed, 138 for John Harvey, 138 for Glenn McIntyre, the McIntyre-O'Brien entry, and 134 for the 4th place car at the moment, the Crichton Sofa Sierra.
In their spare time, Brock and Harvey do a few other things. You wonder how on earth people like this with their international racing program would have any spare time. But in their spare time, John Harvey and Peter Brock get together to build up special Holden Commodores, legendary SS Commodores, and more recently the Commodore Calais Director and Director Sport. And Peter just makes what we in the trade know as a real horny looking car. They just look fast, they go fast, and they certainly make people turn their heads.
Well, the 1-2 that they were attempting to set up has now been accomplished with Peter Brock. And now John Harvey sits in behind his co-director and the Mobil Holden Dealer Team, and the two of them run it out side by side. They're going to milk every minute out of the end of the race. The only one they've got to keep an eye out is Glenn McIntyre in the State Coal BMW. They do have a break over the number 7 car, but a great sight. Alan Moffat's in the pit area along with Neil Lowe. They'd be feeling well satisfied with the efforts of the Mobil Holden Dealer Team here at the streets of Wellington this weekend.
They're going to have to stay on reasonable pace. The gap back to third place is only 17 seconds, so they'll need to circulate around in reasonable race time. Although Glenn McIntyre's tyres are wearing severely, he's having some problems staying anywhere within QE of a race pace.
Yes, you don't want to excite a driver in a Ford Escort to try a passing manoeuvre and go between them, bring the whole thing down to a shuddering halt. Alan Moffat seems quite happy with everything. Probably can't understand why it's taking so long for them to come around, but they're in pretty good shape. Peter Brock in car number 05, John Harvey in car number 3. They'll come back on through the wharf area, over the bridge. They've gone past the Foster's Bridge and coming back onto the start-finishing straight. And Peter Brock in car number 05 comes down the start-finishing straight. John Harvey side by side with him as they go across the line. And still leading, doing it comfortably.
Still a minute left in the race, so we imagine they will finish on the next lap round.
I don't think Neil's too happy about the fact that they are going so slow. I know that he's happy enough, but there's the problem in the background. There's Glenn McIntyre coming up, and he's well aware that place 2 is just in front of him. Maybe they don't realise this even now.
Well, it looks like a script to the form finish. They haven't allowed for Glenn McIntyre, and McIntyre is on the same lap as John Harvey. They've got the track basically blocked as they come down to the next left-hander, and McIntyre is gaining all the time.
There's only 4 seconds between these, between the number 3 Commodore and Glenn McIntyre in the State Coal blocking the road. There's McIntyre on the right of your screen.
Mind you, even if he can catch, I don't think there's enough space to get past him.
Now they're going to get serious now. They pulled out at least another 2 seconds a lap anyway, and they've fallen into line. No, they're back into formation, so come on, boys. Get on with the pace.
Closing stages through Strathmore Group turn, coming back onto the dock area again. Peter Brock in car number 05, John Harvey in number 3, leading the Nissan Mobil 500 towards the checkered flag. Glenn McIntyre running third, not too far back behind them as they come onto the finishing straight, coming into view with all the press photographers and of course a huge crowd here on the streets of Wellington for the finish of the 1987 Nissan Mobil 500. And here they come, the boss, Brock, 05, John Harvey in car number 3, coming up for the finish of the race. Time has run out, the checkered flag is at the ready, and Peter Brock will lead teammate John Harvey across the strike. They win it perfectly for the Mobil Holden Dealer Team, and third place goes to Glenn McIntyre and Charlie O'Brien State Coal BMW. Well done, Mobil Holden Dealer Team.
That's the way they finished. Holden Dealer Team, a 1-2, a perfect finish to the checkered flag. Brock and Moffat first, Harvey and Lowe second, O'Brien and McIntyre third, Crichton and Soper in fourth place, and then Billington and Castle, Milligan and Hyde, Walkinshaw and Percy, and Lorimer and Mira is the way they finished.
What a fantastic race that turned out to be.
Two satisfied co-drivers, Alan Moffat with a V for victory signal, and of course Neil Lowe looking delighted as well. A great way to start the year for the dealer team as they plan ahead for the World Touring Car Championship and of course the Australian Touring Car title. Peter Brock couldn't have started 87 any better. He's come up a winner for the first race of 1987.
Well, what a way to go for the Holden Dealer Team. Certainly looked in the early stages of the race as though they might get outrun. The Nissan Skyline broke down. The challenge then came from Trevor Crowe and Jim Richards in the BMW. That challenge failed. The Jaguars looked dangerous as they started charging through the field in the latter stages. Then both the Jaguars were dead. These Holdens have run flawlessly throughout the day. They have not had a problem. They've handled beautifully. Their tyre wear has not been excessive. The fuel consumption has not been excessive. Peter Brock and John Harvey there at the end. And what a way for the new team boss to start a season.
Yes, a terrific feeling, I would think, for Mick Webb, who has taken over as team manager for the Holden Dealer Team. Keep in mind, 12 months ago, Alan Moffat and Peter Brock had their first race together as team partners and came up winners. And now a new team manager with Mick Webb has also come up as a winning team manager first race out.
Now the cars will be impounded under the new rules. The cars will be impounded at the end of the race. The drivers will become available to us in about 20 minutes' time.
Present the sash to Peter Brock. Vanessa, it's your privilege.
Thank you.
Hang on, Peter. She's just holding you up a little bit there.
Well, that's okay. Yeah.
You prepared to wait for the fruits of this? You got it right?
Yeah.
Hey, hey. How about Alan Moffat? Do you qualify as well? Indeed he does. Alan Moffat, co-driver. All right. It's all a bit congested up here at the moment. Lots of people. Vanessa Abbott with the flowers, the bouquet of flowers for both Peter Brock and for Alan Moffat. And here comes the magnificent Nissan Mobil 500 trophy. Peter Brock and Alan Moffat pick it up for the second year in a row. All right, a chance to perhaps have a word to the two Holden Dealer Team drivers. They're just acknowledging of the spectators here. Peter, a really controlled drive from start to finish, and the car obviously went extremely well.
Yes, I really had to get into a mode fairly early on. After about 5 or so laps, I felt that, well, there was a fair bit of carnage on the out there. There was a lot of cars smashing and debris on the circuit, a lot of cars breaking down. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be one of those. I believe we can win the race by just hanging back a little and then driving my own race. And when I came in about 1/3 of the race, I thought we were in a pretty good position. Naturally, my commiserations to George Fury, who has got an extremely fast car, but has yet to really prove itself in the reliability department, I guess. But Alan Moffat, my car driver, fantastic job out there keeping the car going. Johnny Harvey and Neil Lowe, second car, getting a 1-2 as a dream beginning for 1987. And for initiation for Mick Webb, our tough new race team manager. Thanks, Mick. Things didn't go exactly according to the rule book all weekend. I guess they very rarely do at a street circuit like this, but fantastic job, and I think 87 is going to be a fabulous year for Holdens.
All right, thanks, Peter Brock. Alan Moffat, the co-driver. You had your stint there at the wheel. You were pulled out perhaps a little bit ahead of schedule towards the end. Is that true? That's certainly what our commentator suggested when you were lapping about 144, 145.
No, I hit the wall lap before I came in, and the tires had got a little bit spongy. They saw the lap time, so I came in about 4 laps ahead of time. Just good management. Just good management.
What about at the time of the race, at the halfway stage? 2 hours had gone, and Fury in the Nissan was over a minute in front. He only had 1 pit stop compared to the 2 that you guys were going to make.
Well, this business, you got to finish to win, and we brought our Mobil Commodores home to do that. I want to thank the engine boys who worked hard over Christmas, didn't take holidays. We ran our engines hard all day, all weekend, and it's a credit to the engine department this weekend.
Well, we better make this a team affair, and in behind me we have those people who came in second place. Let's get their sashes presented too. Vanessa Abbott, your chance to present John Harvey and Neil Lowe with their sashes. All right, a word from the 2 drivers who came in second place. First of all, Neil, obviously the scare went into your car and into your team when the Walkinshaw Jag got up there past you towards the end.
Yes, we were a little bit concerned about that. but endurance racing is a discipline. We worked out our tactics before the race started and we stuck with them, and this is the result. I just thank all of our team for the effort that they've put in. It's been tremendous. Thank you.
And from John Harvey, you were there at the end. You brought the car home in second place. A great day for your team.
Certainly was. Our objective always is at Holden Dealer Team to run first and second. We don't always achieve that, but we did today, and as Peter said, we're looking good for 87.
All right, congratulations to you for getting in second place. Now we have Charlie O'Brien and Glenn McIntyre in the vicinity as well. They came in third place. Charlie, getting the congratulations amongst a very crowded Strathmore presentation area here. Charlie O'Brien getting his bouquet of flowers, the sash, and the kiss from Miss Wellington.
Hello.
And here's a man, I guess we can call a Wellingtonian from just up the tracks at Paraparam. Glenn McIntyre.
You got a stool on a kiss too.
And a word with the BMW drivers who came home in third place. A few other BMWs had troubles out there, Charlie, but that State Colt team had good reliability today.
Yes, it certainly did. The last meeting at Pukekohe that we ran, that we won up there, just showed that the reliability was still there at the BMWs, and it just shows that the car is still, or the BMWs are still there for a show for next year with a few more parts coming. So thanks very much to State Coal, and thanks very much to Glenn, my co-driver, and also the crew for doing an excellent job, and Troy and Cole for putting the car together. Thank you.
All right, Glenn, and did you, like at one stage, like your chances of breaking up the Holden Dealer Team's 1-2 finish?
Charlie's just told me that I coasted round on the last lap about 2.5 seconds behind him. I thought the race had finished. I don't know what they would have done if I'd gone through the centre, but it was certainly a good race. And like Charlie, I'd like to thank State Coal and everybody else that was involved with our team. Thanks.
All right, there we are, the leading 6 drivers in the first 3 cars in the 1987 Nissan Mobil 500. Now comes the traditional champagne shower as Ian Gamble presents the bottle of bubbly to Alan Moffat. Okay, stand by to get wet down there.